Thank you for your patience. It is 6:02 p.m. on Monday, December 16th. I'm calling to order the Rutland Select Board meeting for, we're meeting in the lower level of the Rutland Public Library at 280 Main Street. This is another off-night meeting, so it's a regular meeting, but it's just not our usual every other night. So if we can please start with, we're being recorded for, we're on Zoom and we're being recorded for re-airing. We are also live streaming on Local Access and we'll re-air on Local Access as well. You can stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are 4 of us in person, and I believe our 5th is on Zoom. Tom is on Zoom, so we'll be doing roll call votes for everything we usually do anyway. In person are Harry, Paul, myself, and Jen.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you, Tom. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, I just can't see you.
Okay. I will move into minutes, treasury warrant, and payroll. Since this is an off week meeting, we don't have treasury warrant and payroll. We just have approval of meeting minutes for the December 2nd, 2024 regular meeting and the December 4th, 2024 emergency meeting. We'll split them up because I believe the December 2nd meeting, the 4 members present in the room were in attendance, and the December 4th, 3 of us were. So I would entertain a motion for the December 2nd, 2024 meeting. Tom, you were absent for this meeting, just so you know.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to accept the December 2nd, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any conversation, corrections, questions? Roll call. Harry?
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin abstain.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. Thank you, Tamika. Then we have the emergency meeting minutes for the December 4th, 2024 meeting. This was just via Zoom. And I believe Tom and Paul were absent for this one. So this is just myself, Harry, and Jen. I'm gonna entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And this is for the December 4th, 2024 meeting. Any conversation? Roll call. Harry?
Second, aye.
Mattson, abstain.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin abstain.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Tamika, for both sets of those minutes. I appreciate it. Moving into the fiscal year 25 tax classification hearing. I will open the hearing at 6:06 p.m. And I believe we will turn it over to Amy, our town assessor. And we have Donna, our finance team director, as well as our town accountant, and Austin as town administrator. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Select Board, for hearing me tonight. I just want to give you a few highlights of the things we've been working on in the office. We've created a new webpage for the website that was new this year, and our goal was to make it informative and interactive and put all the information, be transparent on there. We entered data on 1,500 parcels that were collected through cyclical inspections. We completed 60% of the town, and we completed inspections on 60% of the town. Work with Vision and CAI, who is our GIS provider, to highlight the chapter land parcels. So all chapter land is color-coded and with a description of what it is on there. We built chapter land database to be able to assist all chapter land owners with managing their chapter lands. We work with personal property vendor to start a new personal property database, and they inspected all 141 businesses in the town. Compiled accurate list of all parcels having some kind of restriction on them, be it a watershed or APR or conservation. Wrote the town's data manual, which we did not have one in place before. Preparing for certification of fiscal year 26. We revamped the senior work-off program and started a veterans work-off program. We have currently 3 veterans enrolled this year. We resolved the 2 cases that were at the ATB, which are Mass Electric, by putting RRC in place. They assisted with the utility values. And we resolved the crumbling foundations case by having a meeting with the homeowner, and we resolved their issues without litigation. And we wrote the first ever town crumbling foundations policy and put an abatement program in place for those homeowners who suffer from that issue. All right, so now the moment you've been waiting for. Fiscal year 2025, the levy is $22,456,994.49. That is an increase of 4.89% over last year's levy, which was $21,409,138.69. Moving down to the box below, how that breaks out is last year's levy limit is $20 million, $20,725,887, plus what is allowed under Prop 2.5, $518,147, plus the new growth, which I'm happy to say is $500,834, which combined is a total of $21,744,868, plus the debt, plus excluded for debt to pay bonds, which is $718,354, leaving the maximum allowable levy of $22,468,222. And that leaves an excess levy of $6,227.51. The levy ceiling is $39,425,903.
Technical question, please?
Yes.
Under that formula, it's plus 2/12%?
It's
Or
actually,
2.5?
it's a spelling error. It's 2.5 supposed to be. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't notice that until recently. So then we turn the page to page 4. We're shifting to looking at the different classes. So the residential class makes up 94.5% of the 100% of the classes, leaving only 5% for commercial. It's really very low. We don't really have a lot of commercial. Basically, most of it is personal property and probably our utilities. Tax implications. The actual tax implications will vary from property to property. Note that the 2025 rate is an estimated rate only, and may change upon the Department of Revenue's review of valuations for all classes, including single-family homes, multifamily dwellings, and condo properties. A number of properties will realize corrective adjustments or value increases relative to property card record corrections that were picked up during cyclical inspections. This year's average single-family tax home value is $454,931.61. That is an increase of $25,327.54 from last year. Last year's average single home family was valued at $429,541.12. At a rate of what is the estimated rate for 25, is $14.24. So that brings the average family tax bill to $6,477.97. That's an increase of $141.59 over last year's $6,331.38. If you look at the table below, you'll see the rate of 1, the factor of 1, And that means both the residential and the commercial, industrial, and personal property tax rates are the same. And the tax bills vary quite differently because the commercial rate is actually gonna be lower than the residential rate. If you notice all the way down to 1.5 of a shift, that is the only time where the commercial actually then increases over the residential. So this shift is not gonna be conducive for this town. We don't have enough commercial. It needs to be at least 30% commercial to make a difference. The Board of Assessors recommends that the Select Board adopt a single tax rate to be applied to all classes of property in Rutland.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you to the Board of Assessors. As the hearing is still open, does anyone have any questions or conversation for Amy or the assessors?
I do have one, just clarification, the excess levy capacity number,
Yes.
can you just explain exactly, it's obviously a difference, is it a positive, negative, and what does that excess number mean?
It's a positive difference. It just means that we can't spend all of it down because you can't split a penny.
Okay,
So that's why there's that excess that's left over, because we try to raise to the maximum allowable.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think if I understand correctly, also, some communities that probably have more commercial don't always necessarily need to tax to their total allowable
Yes.
levy.
Yeah.
We hear that even just in the 5 towns with Holden and Sterling especially, that they're not having to tax to their top maximal allowable levy capacity. They're getting there though, so it's not for a lot, my understanding is a lot of residential communities are often taxed right up
Yes.
up to their max, and
Yeah.
that's why we tend to look at overrides more frequently because we don't have that excess that oftentimes a deeper pool of commercial
A larger
allows.
commercial base does, yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Sure.
Can you help me clarify something,
Sure.
Amy? I'm looking at this chart on page 1, it says here, and I'm noticing under a category 300 to 393. What
page 4.
category is that? Property type.
Page 4, is that in the little
No,
tiny?
page 4, about halfway down in that block where assessor clarification.
Okay.
It says 300 to 393 property type, what is that?
Oh, okay, so it's actually, that's a 3000s code, they just
Okay.
dropped the zeros, that is commercial.
That's commercial. Okay, and so we've got 40 pieces of commercial that total 22,600,000 roughly?
That is correct.
Okay,
And underneath that, you'll see the 4000s class, that is industrial.
okay. And now we jump down to chapter 61, 61A, and 61B,
Okay.
which has a total of, looks like 56 parcels that are less than $1 million, but it's classified as commercial. Can you explain what 61, 61A, and 61B is and why it's classified as commercial?
So these are our farms. All farms are actually classified as commercial.
Okay,
So that's why those are different, and they're mixed-use parcels, that's why you see them breaking out differently. Because they have residential and they have the farmland of some kind, or they have a recreational land or some kind of forestry plan with that.
okay. So I was just looking, I'm going 40 parcels for 22 million, 56 parcels for less than $1 million. So we really discount farm property?
Yes, yes.
To like what extent?
The values are given to us by the State Farm Board, so every year they change. They can go up sometimes and they can go down sometimes. And I have to put those values in by what they're actually doing on that land.
Okay,
So pasture land went down a little bit by like, maybe $50 this year.
and that was the state?
Yes, they
Did you do-
direct everything that I do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any questions from the public? Name and address, please.
Jean Sigliano, 27 Susie Drive. You said chapter land is color coded, is that 61A or is that something else?
Yes, all chapter land of all kinds, 61A, 61B, and just straight 61 are color-coded. You can pull up the GIS, put on the layers tab, and then all the colors, well, there's 3 colors that will be on there.
And what about town-owned land, is that color-coded somehow?
It is not as of yet. I have those parcels, that's the next process and the step of upgrading the GIS. That will come on probably in the next year.
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
and you indicated that commercial is going down in rate or something? I didn't quite understand that.
No, I believe, if I may clarify, I believe she said that the chapter land for the 61A, chapter 61, 61A and 61B is set by MDAR, the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. And so the values for the chapter land, which is farms and kind of preserved open space, is set by the state, and that value fluctuates.
You know, before that though, when she was giving her report towards the end, you said something about commercial going down, I thought you said, so I just was wondering about that.
No, I think
If we would
it's-
split the rates.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, yes.
So what is that?
We were just talking about splitting the, basically there's a shift that you put in within the options table that you, a shift of 1%, it's a factor of one, a factor of 1 has an equal tax rate between the commercial and residential. But if you shift it all the way down to 1.5, that's the only time that the commercial does increase higher than the residential. That's why it's not a good idea to split the tax rate for this town.
And can I just add,
Yeah.
just on the town-owned properties, so I think we're gonna work on color coding them, but there is an option right now. If anyone has searched how much their parcel is worth, you can search town of Rutland and you can see all the town-owned land that way as well.
Any other questions regarding the tax clarification hearing? Then is the board all set? Tom, do you have any questions?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second. This is to close the hearing. Roll call, Harry.
Second, I,
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, I.
Whitman, aye. 6:20. Then I would entertain a motion for voting for the tax shift factor. I would entertain a motion in accordance with MGL Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended, the percentage of local levy, tax levy, which be borne by each class of real and personal property relative to setting the fiscal year 2025 tax rates, and set the residential factor at 1.0 with a corresponding CIP shift of 1.0, pending approval of the town's annual tax recap by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Conversation? And this is, again, just to reiterate, shifting, just setting the split so that there's no split. Roll call, Harry.
second, I,
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, I.
Whitman, aye. We have some other exemptions to consider. There's an open space discount that the select board could utilize to reduce the amount of tax levy paid by open space class to allow a discount of up to 25%. Rutland has no parcels classified as open space. Therefore, I would entertain a motion to move not to adopt an open space discount.
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Conversation. Roll call, Harry.
Second, I,
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, I.
Whitman, aye. We have a residential exemption that would reduce taxable value of a taxpayer's principal residence up to 35% of the average assessed value of all residential parcels. Exemption is covered by increasing the tax levy on the balance of the residential parcels. Rutland has never adopted a residential exemption. And given the shift that it would take to onto the non-exempt parties, it's recommended to not adopt the residential exemption. So I would entertain a motion to move to not adopt a residential exemption.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Conversation?
Yes. Can Amy explain to me why there would be a residential exemption in the first place?
It's offered by the state.
It's offered by the state.
And you see this a lot in seasonal communities, especially down the Cape.
Like Barnstable.
Where you have very high value rental properties, seasonal homes, but year round, the residents still have a higher tax burden. So you see this a lot, where communities adopt the residential exemption to shift that burden to the parcels that I just mentioned.
Thank you. No further.
We have a motion and a second. Any other conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin I.
Whitman, aye. We have a small commercial exemption option that would reduce the taxable value of eligible businesses by up to 10%. Eligible businesses are determined by the Department of Employment and Training. Valuation must be less than $1 million and no more than 10 employees on average. Commercial and industrial classes are given a separate tax rate from personal property, residential and open space discounts not affected. Exemption is covered by increasing the tax levy on the balance of commercial and industrial parcels. Rutland has never adopted a small commercial exemption, and given the small number of commercial and industrial properties that we have in town, it doesn't seem to be an appropriate or fair practice to start this year. So I would entertain a motion to move not to adopt a small commercial exemption.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Conversation, questions?
Please. Do you know the number of commercials that, commercial properties that would meet the 10% and 1 million and 10 employees?
Most of the businesses in our town. We only have small business here, mom and pops. Even the farms don't have very many employees on them, you know, and a lot of people do, you know, they live on there and they work for, you know, they give their labor for free for actually having housing. So we just don't have enough to cover it. That would be towns that have like warehouses and big, huge corporations and stuff like that. That would be worth it for that town. But we just don't have that here.
Have EDC or IDIC weighed in on this at all?
I don't believe they have.
No? Okay.
If I
All right.
could to just
Go
add a
ahead.
little thing too, keep in mind that that exemption goes to the property owner of the building as well. So if we have a business that's renting a little parcel, that little commercial business does not receive the exemption, it's on the building, so it's the building owner.
Thank you. No further.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Tom?
Galvin I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. We have a tax rate set, and I know that there were a few hiccups and everything. I appreciate the finance team, Vision, Amy, Donna, Austin, Nick, everybody, and collaboration with DOR and everything. So I really appreciate all the work and the back and forth and everything. So we're going in strong to fiscal year 26 with our fiscal year 25 tax rate set. So thank you all.
Thank you.
I believe, well, okay, I'll move into public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Name and address, please.
Jean Sigliano, 27 Susie Drive. I have a few things. At the last meeting, it was mentioned that Article 10 was voted down and it was suggested people didn't want business. And I would just like to put out there, maybe people don't want a marijuana business. It's not all business. So I just wanted to make that distinction and ask if we were going to have a special town meeting, would there be a public hearing before that's decided? Would there be a public hearing to set a special town meeting for, to add a new article before the Springtown meeting?
So generally, it's at the select board's whim to call, the purview of the select board to call a special town meeting without, the select board can do that at any time without holding a hearing. Depending on what the articles are, there would be public information sessions or public hearings, depending on what the articles are for the special town meeting. It's also, any resident community member is eligible to request through signatures that the select board call a special town meeting. I think we had in our head that it was 250 signatures. I think in reading through MGL, we realized that it's 200 instead of 250. And that would be a petition through the town clerk's office to petition through 200 registered voter signatures to call a special town meeting.
Okay.
Austin, am I correct in all of that? Right. Thank you.
Then I had another question on the DPW draft plan for winter operations. In part one, it says Appendix A has an organizational chart, but I did not see an organizational chart. Is it possible to get that somewhere? Can that get put on the website or?
So I know we'll get to that plan, but you can also find the organizational chart in the budget document that we publish as well.
I wanted to speak a little bit about sound at the town meeting. I've only lived here 2 years and I haven't been to a town meeting yet where we could hear. It was said that we use Glenwood equipment. I just was to a Glenwood concert where we could hear perfectly. You've probably been to them yourself. So why is it when we have town meeting, we can't, I thought we were using their equipment, they're using their equipment at a concert, I can hear the principal, I can hear the director, I can hear the students who are singing solos and giving messages. We really need to be able to hear. I go there having already read the warrant, but many people come there, they see Austin's presentation, couldn't see it and couldn't hear it. So if we want an educated public, we need to be able to hear what's being said. So I would implore you to get a different sound system or use the one that they use for concerts. It's perfect. The corridor study on 122A, who's doing that and how do we get comments in? Because if you remember, I had asked for sidewalks and a crosswalk on the going west on 122A. I'd sent the board a request for that and it said it had to go to the state and the state said they weren't doing anything yet. So how do we get that, revive that concern?
So the corridor study is being conducted in collaboration with Mass DOT, but it's being conducted by CMRPC, Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. It is in their work program for this fiscal year, which just started on October 1st. So they're doing that work over this fiscal year. They're October 1 to September 30. So I haven't received any notice that they've started their work yet, but usually they start with data collection, traffic counts for the corridor, kind of a kickoff, and then they go through public comments.
So there's a time for public comments for that?
I assume so.
And that would be at these meetings or?
No, I think they would be separate meetings. There will be presentations and discussions with the select board, but they would be separate public informational sessions hosted by CMRPC.
And who's doing the $200,000 water study that you mentioned at the last meeting?
So that will have to go out to procurement, because,
It's not out yet.
correct, because we don't have the money yet. Once we get the money from the state, we can develop our scope of work, and go out to procurement for that. But it's likely a reputable company in the water sewer industry, and an engineering firm.
Okay, and will they be directed to also consider tapping into the Quabbin Aqueduct?
Their general direction will be to explore all potential available options for the town of Rutland.
And what about the design on Main Street? Who's doing that and how do we get input into that?
So that one's a little different. Also, we don't have the money yet, but because it's a state-owned road, I suspect what may happen is Mass DOT will do some sort of they actually call it an intercept, but because it's their road, they may take the money and conduct the study on their own. I also suspect that because they are also doing the corridor study work, they may also use those resources as part of the corridor study to redesign the
Yeah, it
intersection.
seems like it's all in the same.
We, just to look background on that, we had actually asked for the money before we were notified about the corridor study, so, I'll take as much resources as we can for the town of Rutland, but I suspect, especially because it is a state-owned road, that they'll likely take that.
And how much money is left in ARPA? Is that 109,000? Did I hear that right? And then I know I saw Harry asked for the field notes for the study that was done for Article 2, that 33,000, did we get those, and can we get them out for the public to see?
So actually, I'd asked for those field notes. They didn't necessarily have any field notes other than the pictures that they had taken and measurements that they had taken. So there were no general field notes other than comments received by staff, and then the pictures and measurements taken.
So where do we get copies of the comments?
I think it was just, well, there's general comments and interviews with staff.
Were those printed somewhere?
Those are printed in the form of the comments or what was published online on the Space Needs Matrix. So based off of the staffing, appropriate square footage, and then general comments that you saw on the far right column.
Yeah, I never saw comments.
But they didn't
so-
have any deliverables for me that I asked for in that conversation that I had with them, so.
Is that something that we should expect in the future? I mean, it seems like we spent $30-some thousand and we don't even have notes from it, basically.
Well, that's not true. You spent that money on a feasibility study in the Space Needs Matrix, which you did receive.
And nothing is US, it's just,
Yeah.
it seems like the process was a little broken
Well,
in
so
terms of getting.
what I can say, and I think we're getting into a discussion that's not on the agenda, we can certainly have this maybe offline somewhere, but generally for these, this is very high level preliminary, and this is looking at essentially measurements and staffing counts, right? We're not evaluating site conditions yet, we're not looking at zoning anything, right? It was very high level. I suspect you'll get a more comprehensive analysis moving on to the next phase of the process, which of course we're not there yet. But I think that the board gave me a directive on the senior center and recreation that I suspect we'll have a conversation shortly or in the next month or so to advance that, and we can certainly ask for a little bit more if that's what the community is looking for.
Well, not to, I guess to push a little bit, I have heard from some people who said that they were briefly asked, some people in charge were briefly asked, some people weren't asked about this situation, so that was one of the reasons I wanted the notes to see who was, who wasn't. Where did they get this from to create this basic level program, Weston? Not you, but the company itself.
So they spent 2 days in Rutland, full days, interviewing staff members, especially one full day or most of the day, or at least, yeah, I would say most of the day at the senior center, for example. So without knowing specifically who you're talking about, I can say that we spent a lot of time, and the engineering company spent a lot of time with staff and looking at facilities. But sounds like the town wants a little bit more, so we can, and I think that's the direction that the board gave me, that we did request for the next phase some more information and community involvement for the next project, so.
Thank you, Austin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that your list?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Name and address, please.
Barbara Michelle, I prefer not to give out my address. I'm on the bylaw committee, and I understand that the selectmen would like to know our status of the bylaw for the Community Preservation Committee. This is totally a work in progress. Nothing has been finalized. We are hoping that at our January, at our January meeting, we'll be able to button this up fairly decently so that we can discuss it in a little more detail with the selectmen and then have some kind of an idea as to how much more work needs to be put into what we would do for a bylaw. It was my understanding that there were citizens who were curious about what the bylaw would entail as far as the CPA was concerned, so this just gives us a start as far as what we've done so far. Like I've said, it's a work in progress. We might have additions to it, we might have changes.
And thank you, Barbara. I think obviously the CPA ballot question failed at the November annual or presidential election. And so I think some of the conversation was just from the community was there was no bylaw, nobody knew what it was. So I wanna be cognizant of not having the bylaw committee spend a whole lot of time on it, but also wanting to see, I knew you had started some work on it, so wanting to see what that work looked like and everything.
And it's not a very, obviously, it's not a very long document. Most of what entails the CPA comes about in the law and regulations, which is, we certainly don't intend to repeat ourselves. If it's part of the law, then we certainly don't want to repeat it and have it be a bylaw as well. So we are working on that to make sure that we're not redundant.
Thank you.
And anytime anybody wants to, get a hold of the bylaw committee, Tamika knows how to track me down. And by all means, reach out to us. Let us know if you've got thoughts or ideas or input that you would like to give us. We're glad to hear it.
I think you guys are working on a couple bylaws for the annual town meeting, is that correct? Or, cause I know even as we've kind of been working through some policy and bylaw with the new updated bylaws that we just passed a year ago, we've realized that there's probably some tightening or amendments or something even to some of those, which I think knew going into that as we started working through them, we might need some. So I think we're working on kind of pulling a list together just to see if the bylaw committee is amenable to looking at them or not.
We have the stormwater on our radar, and we also have earthworks on our agenda. We discussed, we had thought that at our last meeting, we would have a little bit more detail as far as the stormwater was concerned, but apparently Weston and Sampson weren't ready to give us something or.
Yeah, so Weston and Sampson, in this fiscal year, we've contracted with Weston and Sampson to assist with developing the very first set of rules and regulations to be adopted by the Board of Public Works. After discussions with Weston and Sampson, we feel it would be too soon to make any modifications to the stormwater bylaw because we need to tailor any changes to the bylaw around those rules and regs. So we want to get those in front of you first for approval and consideration, and then for future bylaw updates.
There is a stormwater
There is.
bylaw already in the general bylaws, but I guess what we need is to have it, tightened up a little bit more on
Yeah.
a few things.
And there's things like that we don't have right now, which is pre and post construction. I think we have the very initial illicit discharge, but there's a couple more that we can either cover through rules and regs and then for enforcement mechanisms, put in a bylaw, but again, we're cleaning that up now.
Thank you. And I think, if I understood correctly, I believe Conservation Commission is working on a wetlands bylaw. I think that they're working on it, and I don't know exactly if that process will filter through to the bylaw committee. I would hope so, just as far as the form and everything is similar. So, but that's, I think, still in the early stages. So.
I personally, I feel as if, I know it's December and town meeting's not till May, but it'll go by faster than we can imagine. And I just hope that we have something that, obviously it's gonna take some time for us to get this to town council and have them take a look at it and have public hearings on it as well. So I certainly hope that fairly soon we have something to take a look at and be able to have something for the annual town meeting in May. I did speak with Chris Kolofsky a few months ago, and I said, please don't give this to us a week before the town meeting. And hopefully we'll have enough time to be able to work on it.
We're meeting with, we have a joint meeting posted for the public with, planning board, January 6th, I believe. And some of that's to kind of look at the process specifically with planning board for the zoning bylaw amendment or warrant articles, but also for us to kind of back calculate as a select board, back calculate timing and everything to ensure that we are providing optimal and efficient timing for any warrant articles, whether it's zoning or otherwise, for anything that would require public information or public hearings or anything of that nature. To your point, for bylaws also, for general bylaws as well. So it's on our radar, I think.
And we're also looking for another member.
I was gonna say, in my opening, I have that there's a number of boards and committees that have openings.
There's a post scheduled for tomorrow.
What?
There's a post scheduled for tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So I heard.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there anything else for bylaw? Is there anyone else here for public comment? Name and address, please.
Good evening, my name is John Daypre, the address is 204 Barry Paxton Road. I basically came tonight to see if the select board would potentially do a voting on my article, the original petition that I did.
I think we have this as an agenda item under new and special business, so,
Okay, so I'll just talk then,
yeah.
okay. All right,
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Anyone online? Okay, then if the board is amenable, I'm gonna hold the communications, member comments, announcements, and TA update and ask, because we have a number of individuals here for the appointments, boards and committee appointment and resignations, and I'd like to kind of be cognizant of their time. We're already a little bit after when we had said we would take them. So we have a cultural council appointment. And so I believe the board has been in receipt of some information for the cultural council. And we have I believe three interested individuals for 3-year terms. I believe all the information has been provided to us, including the recommendations of, we can't have a recommendation because they don't currently have a,
We do have one.
I was gonna say, they currently don't have a quorum though, right?
So under the safe harbor provision in the MGL,
Thank you.
they were able to meet on December 4th. And they did make a recommendation that was sent via email that's included in your packets.
Thank you. This also, we want to note, cultural council is a lot dictated by MGL. And it states that they can, members cannot serve for longer than 2 consecutive terms. So if the board appoints Michelle and Jessica, this would be their final reappointment for both. Are Jessica, John, and Michelle here? Jessica Gannon, Michelle Fay. Hi Jessica, thank you. Michelle Fay and John Fay.
Yes, we are here too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. From the board, is there any questions or anything for Jessica or Michelle or John for the cultural council?
If I may.
Sure.
Michelle, could you tell me, and also your husband, why you are renewing? Are you finding it that exciting? I think the town would like to know your thoughts on the cultural council, why you want to stay on it.
I do. I find the council very interesting. We review up to 20 grants a year and discuss how it affects the residents of Rutland and contributes to the town as a whole.
Thank you, Michelle.
And Michelle Fay?
Yes, that was me.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at another individual, I'm trying to look at the name here. Oh, is it Jessica?
No, it's Jessica.
Jessica?
It's not
I apologize.
It's Jessica. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jessica, that's
People call
mine.
me Jessica, but that's not my name. It's Jessica.
Okay. Why are you joining the committee? What did you find exciting about it?
Actually, I have been on the committee for like it was said, this is gonna be my second term.
Okay?
I am currently, before my tenure expired, I have been serving as the chair. And if appointed, I will continue doing that. And my husband was also serving on this cultural council, but because of family obligations, he had to step down. It is, like Michelle said, it's a very fulfilling endeavor because we review a lot of grants, applications that folks put in to benefit our community. And so just being part of that and looking at the kinds of grants that come along and being able to vote gives me the satisfaction of putting my voice in there to, you know, just to my voice in selecting the recipients who would come to impact our community each year. So that's one of the reasons I'm on there. And also, it's just, I'm very interested and very passionate about culture and cultural diversity. So that's the only board, I mean, that's the only committee that has that in the town. I wish there was more, but that's the only one.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Anyone else, any questions for Jessica? Sorry, Jessica.
Yeah.
That's it.
Michelle or John?
Yeah.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to appoint Michelle Fay, John Fay, and Jessica Gannon to the Cultural Council, each for 3-year terms.
So
So
moved.
Yep. That was unanimous.
Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any other conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. And Jessica, Michelle, and John, if you can stop in and see the town clerk's office to get sworn in at your earliest convenience, and that way you'll be all set to go, and we'll pass the information along to the rest of the council as well.
Mm-hmm. And we're always looking for members. We almost were not able to vote this year because we don't have quorum. So anybody interested in joining us, we're always looking for new members.
Thank you. And thank you for serving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our town charter committee. I believe that's why we have a lot of attendees here. We have received 11 letters of interest to serve on the new committee. All the interested residents have been invited with reminders to attend the meeting tonight, either in person or remotely. And I believe that there was one person who I believe has been unable to make it. All the others are.
If I may, we received an email late this afternoon that Mr. George Arab is gonna have to withdraw his letter of interest, so he's not here this evening.
I believe, I see a lot of people I know, I don't recognize everyone though. I'm not sure if Ally O'Hearn is here. Allison? Let's see her. Allison Mitchell. Barbara McManus. Thank you. Chris Senecal. Thank you. And then you said George had mentioned that he would have to withdraw. Michelle Campbell. Thank you. Richard Lopez. Rich, thank you. Ryan Ledger. Thank you. Samantha Chase. I don't see Samantha. And Sandra Thomas. Thank you. And is it Talene Orlando?
Talene Orlando.
Perfect. Thank you. So of the 11, 1, 2, 4 are not in attendance. Is my math correct? Is that correct? So I believe we had set the committee to be between 7 and 9 with a representation from, inclusive of a representation from select board and planning board. Select board has not discussed yet and neither has planning board to the best of my knowledge. What is the pleasure of the board for the number of at-large members to appoint? We could do 5 to 7. I believe we are in receipt of 7 that are here and eligible. And a quorum of committee, that would mean a committee seated of 9. We could do take a selection of these and have 5 of these and 2, and that would be a committee seated of 7. So knowing that this is kind of a set time constraint committee with kind of the year to 18 months with a dedicated charge and intense work, I think all the members that have put in applications were aware of that kind of time commitment going in. I want to thank everyone while everyone's looking and thinking. I want to thank everyone for putting their kind of hats in the ring, and it's great to see so many new, fresh faces in town involvement. It's exciting, and I think that everybody brings really diverse background, relevant work experience, as well as relevant town experience. So I appreciate that as well.
If I may, just a couple disclosures. One of the applicants is my husband, so I will recuse myself from any voting or discussion if there's questions asked of him. And also disclosure, Talene is one of my son's teachers. I don't think it will change any sort of consideration or vote, but I just wanted to disclose that as well. And on that note, I think for something like the town charter, I think I'm in favor of a larger group, so I would be in favor of a 9-member committee, inclusive of the planning board and select board. I think it's just, this is gonna be a very, very important document, and I think the more voices that we have from all areas of the town is gonna be beneficial in providing a lot of feedback and comment to the topics that are inclusive of the charter.
I don't disagree with you, I appreciate that. Harry, Paul?
Well, Jen, you think the more diversity, the better the outcome of the product?
I think it's better as far as generating discussion and just bringing in different perspectives, different ideas. I echo Leah's sentiments. I'm really happy to see a lot of different faces, new people that we haven't seen before in other boards. So I'm really hoping that'll generate some really good discussion on topics or bringing, like I said, fresh ideas, anything that maybe this town needs for consideration.
Paul, what are your thoughts on the number?
It's something that I feel at this particular point in time, the town has to move forward on something like this, and I do see quite a bit of diversity in the applicants. And so, at this particular point in time, I think that yes, as has been mentioned, it's going to be open discussion and something that is going to prove that down the road that, this is something that the town is going to be needing of, and as it continues to grow, the steps taken by this will be something that is necessary.
Tom, do you have any input on the number or anything for the charter committee?
No, I agree with you guys. I think the more in this case, the better. I think especially with the new faces and the new names. So I agree with the rest of the board.
So if the board is amenable, I think the call has been open for, I believe, 2 months. And we've done, thank you Tamika and Austin for the big pushes on social media and around town to kind of really get the word out and new faces. Obviously, the committee would be working with the Collins Center as well. Not at their directive, but they're going to be guiding kind of the process for the committee and what works in town. So hearing kind of the feedback from the board, which I wholly agree, having a larger committee for something like this is beneficial to bring in all the perspectives. I would entertain a motion to appoint the 7 that we have, whom are, and this is just in the order in my packet, it's not anything. Barbara McManus, Chris Senecal, Michelle Campbell, Richard Lopez, Ryan Ledger, Sandra Thomas, and Talene Orlando to the newly formed town charter committee.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second motion.
Second. Any other conversation?
Yes, I oppose the nomination of the entire slate. I think each individual should be asked questions from the board to do our full due diligence.
Okay, is the board amenable to withdrawing the motion as a slate and working through the pack individually?
Yeah, again, just for my own personal disclosure, I would prefer that as well.
Tom, are you, Paul, are you okay? Tom, are you okay withdrawing your motion?
Absolutely.
Okay, are you okay with drawing a second? All right, then we will go through one by one. We have Barbara McManus. Is there a motion for Barbara McManus? Or a conversation, I would prefer a motion and a second and then we can have the conversation. But if the board would feel differently, then that's totally fine. We can ask Barbara anything first.
I can submit or present a motion to approve Barbara McManus as appoint Barbara McManus for the Town Charter Committee.
There's a motion, is there a second? For Barbara.
Second.
Barbara, do you wanna introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Barbara McManus. I live at 19 Blair Drive in Rutland. I've lived here for 8 years with my husband, John Walsh, and my daughter, Fiona, who was a sophomore at Mount Holyoke College. I was interested in the Town Charter Committee because I have a BA in history from Worcester State and was about halfway through my master's degree of history work at Fitchburg State. Things happened in life and I kind of got away from that. I did work briefly for the town of Lunenburg in the planning board and I worked just about 13 months there. But I left when I stayed home with my daughter. But obviously my daughter is in college now and I'm trying to get back into some of the things that interest me about history and involvement in the town. Otherwise, I'm a big runner. I've been involved in the board of the Central Mass Striders for about 25 years now. Run all over the US, but my competitive days are mostly over for that, so have some time and wanted to try some new things to be involved in.
Question?
Sure.
I see here you're employed by the town of Lunenburg.
I was.
Do they have a charter?
You know, I'm not exactly sure. That was a long time ago. I left there in 2005 with the birth of my daughter. So that would be something I would, I could look into that. I'm not aware.
I think
They do.
they have a charter, okay. And I see that you were part of the Mass Planning Board, 4 to 5. Mass Planning Board, 2004 through.
No, that's the Lunenburg, I work for the town of
Oh,
Lunenburg.
Lunenburg, Mass.
Yes, Lunenburg, Mass, the
Okay.
planning board, yes.
Okay, all right. On the board of directors, what positions did you hold there?
Well, actually, I'm like a non-voted board of directors position. I have been the captain of the CMS women's racing team since I think 2000, but I've been involved in road races, a lot of volunteering, a lot of positions throughout that for many, many years. So, all over Central Mass and all over New England. So, and I've also been involved I'm the club contact and served on subcommittees of the United States Track and Field New England Association as well.
Okay. I'd like to understand also, Tamika, perhaps you can help me. I see a lot of these forms where it says upload your resume, not completed.
It's not a requirement. We give people the option, which was a request of the board a few meetings ago,
Okay.
but we agreed that we were not going to make that a requirement.
Maybe we should take that resume thing down then, because I've heard from people who said, I'm not gonna fill out a resume. So that might prevent people from applying. I don't know, we
So-
can discuss it later,
I was
but
gonna say if we can discuss it later, cause we have a motion and a second for Barbara, right now, and that was just a
Okay.
recent addition from this board's directive, so.
just one more question. Sure. What, if you were appointed to the committee, would you be willing to accept any officer's position there?
I would have to consider that. I don't have a major issue with it, but I don't know if it's any more time involved than the committee
It's gonna be
itself.
their decision.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I would consider it, I guess. And I do apologize, but I have to run out.
I mean, I guess
Thank you.
if I may, I think that question is kind of for the committee itself, once it's formed, to work out, knowing
Not
who's on
really.
it, so.
I think that's a question of the ability of an individual to wanna be able to do that. They don't have to,
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
so.
We have a motion and a second for Barbara. She had to leave, I know she was under time constraints. I would entertain roll call then for Barbara. Harry,
Second, I.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Barbara. We have Chris Senical before us. I would entertain a motion, or if the board would rather have a discussion with Chris before making a motion.
Well, whatever pleases the board, I think. I mean, I'm still gonna ask some questions, so.
I would entertain a
before or
motion
after, so.
to appoint Chris Senical to the Charter Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
All right, conversation.
Chris, I've seen you around town a lot. I've seen you in other committees and other stuff. What makes you fancy that you'd wanna sit on this committee?
Good question. Well, a few things, through the chair, please, through a few things. Number one, I got a lot of passion for the town. I've been here over 25 years, raised my 5 children here, been on different boards in the town. I'm on 2 right now presently. And I also have been involved in a lot of the sports programs in town, helped run the soccer program for many years as vice president of that. So love the town, got a lot of passion for it, wanna see my kids raise their kids here and have it be a great place for them. Number 2, I've got a lot of experience in governance. I've got a lot of experience in business departmental management and how different departments can communicate, technology, personally, electronically, all the different ways. I built my own company up from me to 125 employees, Harry. So, as you go along those 25 plus years, you make a lot of mistakes. I don't say that I say this humbly, not arrogantly, but I've just made a lot more mistakes at a lot of this stuff than most people may have had. And so I think that experience, sometimes painful, sometimes costly or whatever, can be of benefit to the town in this process of creating a charter to help structure its government processes. And also, I like to solve these kind of problems. It's one of the things I like to do in my company is just to kind of fix the little things that sometimes need to be tweaked and corrected, and it's an evolving process. These things, it's like your home and maintaining your home. You gotta paint one side every year, because in 4 years, you gotta paint the same side again. So it's always those types of things that you need to do, and I enjoy doing those in my own personal life and in the businesses I own. And, I also have a lot of experience dealing with governments. I'm an electrical contractor. I sit in these meetings through planning boards, dealing with select boards, zoning boards, with my customers. And you get to see a lot of things that work and some things that really don't work. And it really, ultimately, you see we're all here for the town people. Right, we all serve the town, and when you see sometimes personal agendas or certain processes affect that process, it's disappointing. So, I've got experience seeing those things, some that do and some that don't work, Harry.
So I take it just from listening, you're very familiar with law, contract language,
Yes,
stuff like
I
that.
am.
Because basic laws, in this situation, is gonna be cut and dried. This is the document for the town, so.
And I've also served on other boards of, trustees. Presently, I'm on St. John's High School, been there for 10 years as a trustee member. Other institutions, religious, nonprofits. So again, being on the governance, executive committees of those boards, you pick up a lot, you learn a lot. I mean, it's great experience, and I'd just like to share that with the town if it needs it.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Chris?
Business you do.
Can I answer that, Madam Chair? With all due
He's
respect.
mentioned that he's an electrical contractor.
Electrical contractor, I also have my own used car dealership, that's a license that's coming up later today, if I gotta stick around, let me know, I will. And then also I develop property, I have, commercial real estate and things of that too.
Is your dad William?
No,
Senator?
Can we circle back to, sorry.
Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Harry,
Sorry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Chris.
thank you.
Well, I didn't ask you whether you'd be happy with the officer's job or not, sorry.
You don't want me taking notes, so probably don't want me as the clerk, Harry, because I'm terrible at that. But any other one, I'm usually pretty good
Be
for.
up to the committee, okay.
So, whatever the group needs.
Thank you,
And I
Chris.
don't have to stick around for the,
You don't.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Good night.
We have, next in my packet is Michelle Campbell. I would, continuing with the process that we've been doing, I would entertain a motion to appoint Michelle Campbell to the Charter Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
And conversation.
Michelle, I see here you say you wanna be on the charter committee because you wanna be able to see the town in a fresh light. I've lived here for 45 years, so I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from when you say in a fresh light.
No,
When we're talking about a constitutional thing for the town.
correct. I am a new member of town. I've lived in town for 2.5 years. What I meant by that was that I want to be part of moving the town forward. In this process is something that is exciting for the town to just move the town. Nothing wrong with the town as it was, but the town is changing and I would love to be part of that process.
What is your concept of the charter committee? What do you think it's supposed to do?
Well, what it is supposed to do, the town is governed by the state basically governs the bylaws and the charter is put in place to let the town govern itself in a more meaningful manner.
Right now, we're governed by a select board
Mhm,
and
correct.
committees and so forth. So it would really be an extension of everything we're doing, but finalizing it, correct?
Correct, correct.
What kind of background do you bring to this?
Well, I don't have any relevant city background. I grew up in Worcester. We lived in Worcester for a long time. My husband, who's here with me tonight, we have moved around, so we've lived in multiple different places. I'm really passionate about town government and how towns function and how cities function. And so I've had a chance to see different areas of the country and how their cities have worked and what works and what doesn't work. And just living in different places has given me a little bit of extra, experience to know just that things aren't always one way. There are multiple ways for a town to function. And what the best way for Rutland is I think what will happen in the committee.
I hear a little passion in your voice, so I'm
Yeah.
happy about that you applied, yes.
Do you feel comfortable with the 2.5 years that you've been in town, that you kind of got a fingerprint of what the town is all about?
I feel like I have a feeling of what the town, yeah, I mean, I feel, I know what, about the town, what I know about the town. I don't know how else to answer that. I don't have the same experience knowing what the town is about that you would have. I have a different experience, one that, you know, I love the town, I love living here, and I really would like to help the town move in the direction that it needs to move.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Michelle? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Michelle. Moving on, next I have Richard Lopez. I would entertain as I said, continuing the process, I would entertain a motion to appoint Richard Lopez to the Town Charter Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Second. Conversation.
Do you have any, Rich, you and I know each other in passing, so I'll let them know that. Do you, what kind of experience do you have in governance? Because you've used that term a couple of times here, that's why I'm asking.
So my family and I have lived here a little over 2 years, around the same time frame. But we the day or two after we moved in was the town's 300th anniversary, and we attended the 4th of July parade. And we felt very connected to the town from an early days we were here. And we have wonderful neighbors, and I became privy to some of the town's budget considerations. And that got me involved in town governments, where I ultimately, I was initially a fill-in, but then voted in as a board of trustee for the library. And I'm learning a lot in the relatively short time I'm here. And to be completely honest, it's not every day you have an opportunity to be a part of the founding document of a town. And Rutland is a wonderful place, but it also has to grapple with a lot of things, with growth and changing demographics, and trying to sustain what we love most about it, but also think in creative, out-of-the-box ways to move it forward. So for me, again, like I'm relatively new to the town. I'm learning as I go, but I'm very interested, and I'm committed to the community and committed to forging connections with people. And I think connection and a sense of town identity is really important. Because sometimes I'll hear conversations and things in various circles, but if we come together, it's not about agreement all the time, but just getting on the same page that we all want what's best for the town. And to be honest, I see this committee, because it's a fixed time frame, I see it as manageable in that way. But then it as I learn more, I would remain involved, hopefully, after that point in town governments as well.
I know we have a few open positions after you're through with this, so. If you were appointed to that committee, would you have any objections to serving as an officer in there on it? Because there are 3 basic officers. Clerk, nobody wants, okay, vice chair and chair. So if you were selected for that, would that be something you could do, you think?
I believe I'd be able to do it. I would want to learn more about what it
Okay,
entails, but yes.
that's all I want to know if you would be willing, okay. Thank
Anyone
you.
else have any questions for Rich? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Rich. We have, next in my packet is Ryan Ledger. I would entertain a motion to appoint Ryan Ledger to the Town Charter Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Conversation.
Ryan, I don't know where to start. I think you've got good instincts, because you're married to her anyways.
Yeah, I know that.
So, I mean, it's like, you know what's going on in town, all right? You got an idea. Could you tell me a little bit about how that technical supervisor would be helpful in the charter that you have here? What do you mean by that?
Because I make my money by translating technical things so that other people can understand them. So I take it from a high level and make it digestible for somebody that doesn't understand the ins and outs of the process.
So from what I'm hearing, do you think, and not putting words in your mouth, do you think that when you take all these mass laws that you're gonna be able to digest them and help the
Yes.
committee understand some of that kind of stuff?
Exactly.
I won't ask you if you'll be an officer because we already have one here, so. Actually, I have no more further questions for you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Ryan? Hearing none, roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger abstain.
Galvin, aye.
Waitman, aye. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
Moving on, we have Sandra Thomas. I would entertain a motion to appoint Sandra Thomas to the Town Charter Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Conversation.
Sandra, good evening. You say you've been a resident of Rutland your whole life? your
Mine
entire
is
life?
the obligatory 8 years that you go to Worcester and then came back, but yes.
So you have a pretty good understanding of
Yes,
the flow of Rutland.
what it was, what it is, what it could be, yes.
How do you think that knowledge will help you on the committee?
I think with the years that I've had here, I know an awful lot of people, so there's a lot of input that I could get from other people, you know, around the town. And like I said, I know how things used to be and how things are now, but growing up here, just what it could be, you know, the concerts on the Common, that's just, since I was a kid, like I always wanted to do that and be able to go up and ham around with our friends like as grown-ups, and our kids now have that opportunity, and now we have that opportunity, and just bumping into everybody, it's just good.
Your life's experience or job or whatever you did, how do you think that'll help you with the committee?
I think getting to know, just getting to know a lot of people, getting to know how town works, coming to these meetings, being on the 300th committee, and having to come to some of these meetings, and recently planning board meetings for other things from people that I know that I've grown up with from town. Just seeing how the town government works, I think that's beneficial. And that just comes from being here.
How would you take the experience on you said the events committee?
300th committee,
300?
and which parlayed into the events committee
Yeah, how do you think that would transition into helping you in
with the charter.
yeah,
The 300th was a lot of fun, as Mr. Lopez had said. That was a lot of fun, and a lot of people from all aspects, old, new, a lot of people came out to town, and just getting to know everybody and talking to people. So you kind of get a better understanding of what people like, what people would like to see, what, you know, to be, and kind of bring back. So I think just experience of talking to people and just getting the idea of what people would like to see Rutland become. So I think that I found that very helpful. In the events committee too, just talking to people.
thank you. No further questions.
Any other questions or comments for Sandra?
Just one. With the time that you've spent with the various committees, do you feel that you've got a fairly broad experience with what the town is, and having lived here for a number of years? So you're comfortable with what you have and what you think and where
Yes.
you can go with it? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear from the people that are new to town, just, you know, what they think and where they think, not so much improvement, but, you know, what could we do better, and and what, just working together.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Sandra. And I have Talene Orlando. I would entertain a motion to appoint Talene Orlando to our town charter committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Conversation, questions?
Through the chair.
Yep.
Talene, I see here you are active member on other boards in town. Could you tell me what those are?
Talene, you might be muted.
Are you there, Talene?
Do you wanna
Check
just
on
make
that.
sure we're not having a Zoom?
Oh, there she is.
Talene, can you hear?
She's trying to connect audio.
Talene, I'm not sure if you can hear us.
I have had perfect service the entire time until about 3 minutes ago. I'm so sorry. I've just moved to a new spot.
Sorry, that's the way it always happens, I think, with the Zoom. Do you wanna ask Harry had a couple questions.
Of course.
I'm looking at your additional information, okay? And here you say that you are involved in an active member of other boards. Are those boards or committees?
I'm on the Rutland Little League board.
Okay? The Little League board, that's not a municipal board, right?
Correct.
Separate board all by itself, okay? And what is your role on that board?
I serve as secretary.
Really?
Really?
Okay. What experience do you have in local governance versus other than the board?
Yeah, quite frankly, none. I don't have any experience in local government, but I'm deeply invested in gaining that experience.
Okay. Do you know anything about our bylaws?
I've done a pretty significant deep dive into Rutland's government, but I know that in sitting with the board and sitting with the committee members, I'll certainly learn more.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna step back to what you are as a public school teacher. How do you think that helps you work with the committee?
I think having organizational abilities, having my finger on the pulse of Rutland and the community as a whole, my ability to filter through people's visions and synthesize the information, analyze data. I'll be honest with you, I was a public school teacher in Shrewsbury for over a decade, and I have been looking for an opportunity in Rutland because I really want to deepen my connection and invest in my community on a micro level. So that's why I left my job there and I came to Rutland. And I just think being a school teacher, you get so many of these really valuable traits that lend itself well to planning boards and to committee boards, where you are not only, consistently communicating with people verbally and in writing, but you're synthesizing data, you're evaluating opinions, and you are expressing them in a neutral way.
Okay. You sound really passionate about wanting to be on this committee. Am I reading that right?
You are.
Okay. I think that answers my questions. Oh, if you were appointed to the committee, would you be willing to accept one of the officers' jobs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Everybody heard that? Okay.
Any other questions for Talene? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Talene, and thank you for your patience being on Zoom. I appreciate it.
Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we have seven members appointed to the Town Charter Committee. I believe we still, probably at our January 1st meeting, we'll do a select board appointment. And hopefully planning board can do one maybe at that meeting also, because we'll be jointly posted for that as well. And then we will have the Collins Center reach out to the committee to get the first kind of initial meeting up and the group organized. And for anyone that's still here, stop in the town clerk's office at some point to be sworn in. So then you're an official member of the committee. I appreciate everyone's time and patience tonight, as well as their enthusiasm, and look forward to the work that the committee does. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now to work.
Now, I'm.
Nice group of people there.
Yeah,
Very qualified, very different.
It's nice to have some people that have a really good long history in town, as well as new fresh perspectives as well, and I think there's a wide variety of strengths. So
They have
I
a strong interest in it, yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
yep, thank you all. I will think we should go back to communications, member comments, announcements, and town administrator update. I will keep my comments brief. The events committee is still having their Light Up Rutland event. I believe the map is posted online, all the houses and participants, I guess. It may not just be houses, it could be some businesses as well. It's just houses.
No businesses, 2 years in a row, did not sign up.
Okay, we'll have to, maybe we can get EDC to work with them next year also. But the map is online, and I believe voting is through this Friday, the 20th. And then the winner will be announced, I think, after the Christmas holiday, is that correct? Or,
No,
oh, okay.
after I tally it up.
Oh, okay, so it'll be announced
It'll
that
go on
weekend
Facebook.
probably. Okay. Follow social media and the town website for the winners of that. Festival of Trees was a couple weekends ago, and it was really well attended. The tree lighting, the fireworks, it was cold but gorgeous weather. It wasn't rainy and sloppy. There was snow on the ground. I want to thank the Historical Society for all the work that they've done. I saw that they also put in a entry to the Spencer Parade of Lights this past weekend. I unfortunately don't know how they did, but I think that the float looked amazing, and so I love the holiday spirit that the Historical Society and those volunteers are bringing forth. We're heading into the holiday season, and I think our college students are coming home. I want to wish everyone happy holidays and be safe and enjoy the time with family and friends. As we've reiterated, we're looking, a lot of our boards and committees have openings that we're looking for volunteers. So please, if you're interested, most of them do have Zoom options, so even if you're not necessarily able to attend in person for all of the meetings, there is a way to stay connected and still participate. Those openings are listed on our website as well as our social media, and I believe we have some posts scheduled to go out with some of those vacancies also, social media posts. I wanna thank everyone again for the work that they've done for the tax recap hearing, the tax classification hearing that we had. There were, as we mentioned, there were a few hiccups, but the team really came together and worked really cohesively to work through that, so I appreciate all of that work. And I appreciate the staff. I think this past weekend, the fire and public safety, rec and fire and police did the work to bring Santa Claus and the Grinch around town, and I think it was well received. I don't know how many stops, I think it was over 200 stops, or right around 200 stops? 200 a day.
1,000 gifts.
1,000 gifts that passed through public safety. So thank you to the community for your patience and work with that, and thank you to rec and public safety and DPW as well to ensure that everything was done for that as well. As the cold weather hits, keep an eye on your neighbors, please. If you need heating assistance or anything, reach out to the Council on Aging, I believe. And or town hall, and we can direct you accordingly. But please keep an eye on your neighbors, help with the shoveling, just be a good neighbor, be mindful of people. I think food pantry donations have been up, as well as need, so thank you to the community for all of the community support on that aspect as well. Happy holidays. Austin, do any other members have comments? Austin, I'll turn it over to you for the administrator's update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just a few updates. As the board stated, just wanted to thank the board for their patience and working with us on the tax classification work. Obviously, I think we want to get a lot of that work done sooner. I think back and forth with the Department of Revenue is normal. I think there's definitely, room for improvement on our end that we'll be working on. But again, I just wanna thank all the work that the finance team did. And candidly, I also wanna thank the Department of Revenue. They've been tremendous partners during the past 2 weeks, providing information and accelerating some of their reviews and shifting some of their resources to help Rutland when they have 350 other communities as well that they're also looking to support before the end of the calendar year. Just wanna note for the public that the upcoming holidays will be shifting some of the operational hours for Town Hall and Community Center, and as well as the library, but specifically for Town Hall and Community Center on Christmas Eve, Tuesday the 24th, we will be closing town offices at noontime. And obviously we're closed on Christmas Day, the 25th. On New Year's Eve, the 31st, we'll be closing at 1 p.m. and obviously closed on New Year's Day. One of the goals the board has for me personally this year is to explore and identify solutions for facility reservation systems. So Tamika and I have been working on some options. We are kind of soft launching and beta testing, if you will, a system that we're actually already paying for with our town website. So you can access the facilities reservation system for 3 rooms at this point. I believe this room, the annex conference room, and the wood studio. You can go right online, right on the front page, there's a facilities button, and you can see a calendar with the meeting spaces if it's available, and then you can reserve right online and it goes to staff. We'd like to expand this across the organization, but we'd like to start small, with smaller rooms, and ones that aren't as complicated, and then get some feedback from the community, and also from the board and from staff, and look to roll that out across the organization. This is also in coordination with your building use policy as well.
Excuse me, did you say this room was one of the ones?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then finally, just on the FY26 budget update, all departments have submitted their FY26 budget requests. We are beginning departmental reviews with the finance team and department heads on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. The chair and I, and also the finance committee chair, also attended a meeting with the Wachusett School District, business and finance chair, school committee chair, administration, as well as select board chairs and finance committee chairs and town managers, administrators from each of the other communities in the district as well. I thought it was a very informative meeting, especially to talk about some of the challenges that the district is having from a Chapter 70 standpoint. And also I think we were at a high level talking about some of the challenges that each of the communities are experiencing, whether it's up against the tax levy, limited local receipt growth. But we also received a very, very high level services figure to what that would look like for the Wachusett school budget. But I just want to reiterate, that was very high level. They have not gone through the formal budget process yet, but kind of an estimate to where we would be. I suspect that there's a lot more conversation to be had with the school committee, school administration, and between each of the communities. But I thought it was a productive conversation. I don't know if the chair has anything to add, but this will be an interesting budget process. And I want to make sure, obviously, that Rutland taxpayers and residents are informed about where we are through this process. especially as the school is gearing up on their budget development as well. That's all I have.
If I may just piggyback a little bit on that, thank you, Austin, for bringing that up, I forgot that in my update. I thought it was informative. Julie Kelly from MARS, Mass Association of Regional Schools, did a nice presentation kind of going over a little bit more of the funding challenges and highlighting kind of the inconsistencies that the state funding formula creates and some advocacy pieces that we can look towards going into this legislative session as well to look at the state funding side of things, formulation side of things. It might be worth, I'm not sure, I remember last year, school committee and FinCom then had asked Tracy Novak to come in and present. It might be worth seeing if Julie would be willing to do a similar presentation to our FinCom as well as any select board members that are interested in attending as well. Just I think it and the public, but I think it's beneficial to have that information out there because it's a massive beast and there's a lot of moving pieces to it. I don't think any of the 5 communities or the district are feeling good about things. So it wasn't really a uplifting meeting, but it was a lot of the same challenges that the communities are facing, the district has faced, and how to address that and in a equitable way so that the district isn't decimated and the towns aren't decimated. So it's going to be ongoing. We are meeting this Friday. We have a joint meeting posted for FinCom has asked to meet with our 3 regional school Thursday, sorry, what did I say? Friday. Sorry, no, Thursday, sorry, this Thursday. FinCom had requested a meeting with our regional school committee members, our 3 members, and so they, I believe, will be in attendance and we are joint posted if select board members are able to attend. I think it could be valuable to kind of hear and share the town concerns with our elected body at the school side.
If I may, just so you had asked if anybody was gonna be there, I'll be there Thursday night. You know, in case we have a quorum, I don't know who else is gonna be there.
I already posted, so we don't have to worry, just in case.
Very good.
Thank you. Does anyone thank you, Austin. Does anyone have any questions for Austin with his update? Austin, I had a question for the 3 rooms, for this room, the annex meeting room, and the Wood Studio. I know the Wood Studio is Zoom ready to go. Will the other rooms have Zoom readiness that anyone can operate, or will they need cable or anything?
Yeah, so I think the intent is to try to make, so we've secured the meeting room technology. The intent is to make this room sort of autonomous as well. Not with the annex conference room at this time because as I briefed the board, we're going to be doing some construction there, so I'd hate to install the technology and have to take it down. But certainly I think a long-term goal would be to make any space at least some sort of a hybrid optional. But I think we'll get working on this room first.
Thank you.
But we do have the technology for 2 more rooms at this point.
If we're bear testing the Wood Studio and I get a book, do I still have to go to the fire department to get the key?
Yep.
We can't put it in one of those key locks?
So it's a capital request this year for fob access. So as a part of this building use policy, essentially when you make your reservation, the room or the facility will be unlocked for that reservation time. Obviously, we don't have that yet, so right now,
Okay,
status quo.
okay.
Any other questions or comments for Austin?
Yeah, one more. Meetings that are 6 o'clock after the business closes. If you're having it in the annex, how would you access that?
The same way.
Same way?
Yep.
I don't have a key.
Dispatch.
Yeah, go to dispatch.
Oh, it'll be a badge type of thing?
No, dispatch.
Dispatch, yeah.
Oh, dispatch will have it for there too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Dispatch has keys and access to all the buildings, so if there's ever a need, it's just some buildings are alarmed, so you need to be mindful as to, and dispatch knows which ones are, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If the board is amenable, I would like to move into new business, just because I think we have some folks here for new business. I imagine they may be here for the old business, which is a special act discussion as well, but we have a decent amount of new business, so we can, if the board's amenable to that. Our first item is, we had a request, for consideration to call a special town meeting. This was brought up through public comment at our previous meeting, and we said that we would add it to the agenda for discussion. This is the to reconsider the zoning bylaw amendment that had passed but failed the 2/3 by, I believe, 2 or 3 votes. That was because it was a zoning amendment. It required 2/3 vote. As we kind of went over during public comment, the select board can call a special town meeting at a town meeting at any time for any reason. If you recall, last year we had called a special town meeting for the general bylaw review. The other option is to have anyone petition for 200 signatures and to call a town meeting, and in which case, if they meet the 200 registered voter threshold, then the board is required to call a special town meeting. I believe, John, you are here to speak to it. I think Austin forwarded me the email at about 5 o'clock tonight. You can probably recap that email. And then we can have a board discussion as a board as to the merits of that, I guess.
Sure. Should I stand up?
Yeah, name and address, please.
John Daypre, 204 Barry Paxton Road, Rutland. Basically, I came tonight to see if we could do schedule a special town meeting for a vote on my actual petition. I did the signatures the first time. I got 160, and I know that, like, we talked about 250, and I wanted to, like, participate in you guys' process where you had a town meeting already scheduled, so I tried to enroll in your date, so I didn't make the town do another date for my own item. And basically, the town meeting, after question 2, a lot of people left, which kind of skewed the vote a little bit. Also, I never got to speak to it, which I was told to prepare a presentation for over a month, was ready to go, didn't get to do it. Also, nobody talked for any board, and then we failed by 2 votes. So basically what I was also, I know that they tried to reconsider it, but they hit the adjourn little thing there. So what I was trying to hopefully accomplish tonight would be to get an actual vote solely on that item, so that it's a true vote. So it's like everybody's voting on one item, and then that would be a real vote. I did the petition already. Town didn't vote on it, and they were supposed to, so I was hoping that we could get that rectified by getting a new date, without having me have to go do more signatures. Cause if I would've known that, I would've just did the 200 signatures when I got 160, if that makes sense. So I was hoping that maybe you guys could vote on giving me another date, and then if that was okay, then what I would do would be on the town meeting floor, when we did the vote, I would just have my language on my petition originally be amended to the town's verbiage that they wanted originally, so they could have the 2 stores instead of the possibility of having more than 2 stores. To your comment earlier, I know you mentioned that the town might not just want another marijuana business. My question would be, what would be the difference if we already have 1 marijuana business than having 2 marijuana businesses? I really see no difference.
Some people don't want any, and we're stuck with 1.
Also, for the tax revenue perspective, I sat in the town meeting and I heard a lot of like back and forth over monies. And from my understanding, there's no other business that taxes are tied to the revenue of the store. Every other business taxes is tied to real estate taxes only. So if somebody opens up a car wash, somebody opens up a fast food store, somebody opens up any sort of business, all the town can do is increase the taxes of the property. But with this business in particular, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the only business that the town gets actually percentage of the revenue of the store. With these stores, town gets 3% of total revenue. So if we were to sell X, Y, and Z amount, the town would get 3% of that total. And it seemed like from listening to the town meeting that that would be a benefit to the town. It would also bring jobs and various other items to the community too. So basically, I'm trying to be valuable to the community where I could help people get new jobs, bring in new tax revenue. The laws for the CCC, they make it so strict, and I'm sure that some people that went to the other store could attest to this too. They make it so strict with their rules and regulations and security and cameras and all that stuff that like there's virtually zero possibility of anybody under 21 like being able to get any, like it's regulated by the state, like super regulated. So as far as security is concerned, if we were able to get another business like this, I think, in my opinion, it would only be a positive to the town. And obviously, that's just my opinion, but that's what I wanted to speak to what you mentioned earlier, so. And then if you guys were open to voting on it, then I would, it would be greatly appreciated, because in one end of things, I don't feel like I got a fair shot, right? I did the work, I did everything I was asked, I got signatures, we didn't vote on it. So I think it would be fair, and I don't think what I'm asking is crazy, to just have a new vote on that one item and then let the results be the result. In that case, if I were to not get the vote my way, then I would feel comfortable with the process. Whereas the other way, I don't feel like I got a fair crack at it because certain different dynamic or like details kind of switched different parts of the process, you know?
So if I can, Austin, I think if I can understand the process, kind of the considerations was there were two articles. Article 11 was the citizens petition that was received the requisite number of votes for a special town meeting. It was 100, and John, I believe you said you had 160.
That's correct.
That was Article 11. Per MGL, because it's a citizens petition, there's not much that the town can do. But because it's zoning, planning board is required to hold a public hearing. Planning board did not hold a public hearing for Article 11, which was why we could not move any action on that article at town meeting. Article 10 was drafted in consultation after town council saw the article and said, saw the citizens petition and said, if the petitioner is amenable to this, this would provide the town a little bit more control, still meet the needs of the petitioner. If the petitioner is amenable, would the town sponsor this? The town was amenable to that, I believe, and held a public hearing on that was continued. It was a 2-night public hearing on Article 10 that was a town-sponsored article. And that was the article that was voted on at town meeting. No one spoke to it. It had received favorable planning board, I believe favorable FinCom and favorable select board recommendations. That article failed by the 2/3. It passed the majority, but it failed by the 2/3. But because there was the process wasn't followed for Article 11, that's the reason that no action could be taken for Article 11. Is that clear? Just so I think.
And I believe it was postponed indefinitely, which means it could be voted on again, which is basically why I'm requesting that we were able to get a new date to vote on it, because it kind of slipped through the cracks the first round.
That the process wasn't followed for the citizens petition.
That's
process
correct.
Wasn't followed. So does the board understand that that piece of things, whether you agree or not, just understand that process. And so the request before us is to, if the board would call a special town meeting, otherwise the option would be for John to collect 200 signatures to request a special town meeting. And then an additional request for the 100 signatures for a citizen's petition at the same time to get that article placed, I believe, right?
Would just be 200, right?
I think it would be 200, but that we'd have to be 200 to call the special town meeting and 100 for the article itself. So you would need, I think you would need 200, but 100 of those would have to be for the article. I'm not sure.
Yeah, don't quote me on this, but I wanna say that initial, essentially the question that the gentleman is looking to have at a town meeting, I think is what could call the meeting. So getting sufficient signatures on that question, I think. But again, I think we'd have to check with the clerk's office on that.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we're providing the appropriate information to the potential petitioner as well as the public, how that works. So, that's that.
Sure.
Conversation from the board's perspective.
John, right?
Yes, sir.
What is your, and I know you're probably gonna answer, and I don't mean to be a mean question, but what is your rush? We do have a May meeting coming up.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it is because by calling a special election for one item and spending a lot of money of the town's money to do it is not gonna go over well with the citizens. So that's why I'm wondering if you could put it towards May.
So just,
What's the issue?
just for clarification, it would be a special town meeting, not an election. Special town meeting does have an expense, it doesn't have the expense that an election has. I had asked to get a ballpark figure for what the special town meeting cost was when we did the bylaw. The expenses for a special town meeting would likely be, I would imagine it being held here, so we wouldn't have the sound constraints that we had, as well as the expense of the janitors and renting a school out. Also, so the expenses have come in the form of the check-in and check-out workers, so the town meeting employees, workers, and whatever the time is to have town council legally represented here. And if there were additional warrant articles, then that review process. But just for clarification, I believe, Austin, it's probably the calling of a special town meeting is probably in the $1,000 to $2,000 range. Obviously, there may be additional legal review depending on what those warrant articles are.
Yeah, I think that's ballpark, but I think that the figure that you provided, of course, depending on the overall, if this is a 12 article special town meeting warrant, that's very different than even what we just had, right? Or what is being suggested. So I think that's probably high, but that would be fair.
So it's not without an expense for sure. I'm not minimizing that, but it's not the election expense that we're.
I guess I know he said he'll take it whatever way it comes.
Well, so like at the first round, sure.
I'm concerned, I guess for you, in that if we only get a few people at the special, if all we have is your warrant article on there, we only get a few people.
Okay.
And the people we get don't want it, you don't have a very big breadth of people showing up for it.
Sure. Well, I
my concern
was gonna
for you.
hand out flyers, talk to as many people as I can. The second I get a date, I'm probably gonna talk to as many people as I possibly can until that date. Yeah. Well, so the first round, I kinda tried to be considerate for the town, because I already had all the signatures and I could have just got more and then got a date whenever I wanted, but I tried to participate in the town's process, so I didn't make them do another meeting, but then like we didn't vote on it. So then so in May, I have a lot going on with my properties too, that I don't really wanna get into right now, cause I was technically supposed to leave at 7:15, but I wanted to stay to talk to you guys. But basically, long story short, the process itself for that business takes a long time, right? So I can't get a special permit or submit the application for the CCC until the town votes on the bylaw and changes it, or if it was voted on to change it, and then at that point, we could apply for a special permit. So if I wait till May, it's like 6 months, and then add another 6 months, so then like, we're talking about 2 years instead of a process, could be 1 year. And I wanna get the ball rolling now. I have a lot of money tied up and I'm at the point where I'd sell the property or I'd do the business.
I understand, John, but my other concern is, we're looking to ask the town to pass another article to provide for another one, when we don't even know how good this first one's gonna be. We don't know what kind of income, what kind of problems, we don't know anything.
I agree with that,
So that's the other concern I have,
yeah.
you know?
But that shouldn't really affect me though, like if they took a while to do their process, right?
No, I'm talking about as they're opened and they're doing business, we don't know anything going forward. This is the first time we've had them, we understand beer establishments, we understand auto establishments.
So Gardner, I'll give you an example, pretty sure they made $1 million in taxes last year.
We're talking about Rutland, I understand, but we are also at Rutland.
No, but no, I agree.
And I like that everybody says, well, you know, Leominster did this, Gardner, Worcester did this, no, we're.
Well, it's an example to look at.
That's just my personal feeling, Joe.
For sure.
Okay?
But like if the town could get a third of that, would that be better for you guys?
I don't understand what you mean.
Say they did a third of what Gardner did, would that help the town? So my point is the reason why I'm asking, because remember at the special town
But
meeting?
I'm looking at saying a third of what Rutland is going to do with this one facility. I don't know what that is.
No, I'm saying about the total, I'm saying the total tax, I'm saying the total tax revenue that the town brought in from sales and taxes was that amount. So I'm saying if the town were to get a third of that amount for both stores, would that help the town?
I can't assume anything I do not know.
If the
We
town,
don't know.
if the town made an extra $300,000, would it help the town? Or would it not help the town?
Would you promise an extra 300,000 in revenue?
I would try my best to do
No, would you promise? Because you're asking me to make assumptions I don't know, and I'm gonna ask you to make
Well,
an
so
assumption.
like I would do my best to sell $10 million worth of product, so the town would make 300,000 off of my store. That's what I could say for me. And I also know that you came up to me at the town meeting and you said, we're trying to get this going for you.
I'm behind you on that, but
Okay.
it's the process, and number one, I just don't know what the other store is gonna do or how.
Sure.
We don't know anything.
Sure.
So here we are, we're gonna pass a bylaw that says, well, we're gonna allow another one in based on liquor licenses.
Yeah.
That's totally different from that, but my personal feeling is, I don't know what Rutland's gonna do or how much you're gonna benefit us by rushing it in now. I understand
I
your
wouldn't say we're
situation.
rushing it in now. I would say we're trying to like start the process, right? Cause it's a long process to begin with anyways.
And please don't take me as somebody that's coming at you, Joe.
No,
I am not.
trust me,
I wanna see you succeed, but I'm also concerned about what I think the town is going to do if we only do yours.
Well, we wouldn't be only doing mine, we would have two of
We're
them
calling a special for just yours.
for that item because it wasn't voted on correctly the first time. That has nothing to do with me either. I didn't mess it up.
Okay, John.
I'm just.
No, I'm not arguing that.
No, I don't wanna argue, but I'm saying like I didn't cancel the meeting. I showed up, I scheduled the thing, I made a presentation, I came, I got my signatures, I came to the special town meeting. I basically did only what I was asked this whole process. So I'm just asking for a fair shot at it, if that makes sense.
And we'll say what, and the board will make the decision.
Of course.
But I would say, I'll give you a fair shot.
Which I would
But it won't-
appreciate.
It won't be before May.
That's fine.
It's me. That's all I'm saying.
And that's
You know,
okay, and
if
then
the board decides or doesn't decide.
sure, and then all I would have to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is go get 200 signatures, is that correct?
That's it.
And then we make it next month.
Or whenever we'd schedule it, right?
Well, yeah, within the time period for the laws, right?
I believe you have to schedule within 45
What's
days.
that?
Yeah.
Mass General Law says you have to schedule within 45 days.
So,
Yeah, so I mean, whichever way you guys do it, I understand what I have to do on my end either way, so I'm trying to just move the ball forward, right? On my end, just because we have loans and I'm paying money and I have a lot of money tied up, so I'm kinda trying to figure out if I can do this here or if I can't. For my own well-being, you know what I'm saying?
I think from my perspective, I agree with you, John. I'm a little disappointed in the process that the hearing wasn't scheduled, and if 10 failed, we didn't have a chance as a town to vote on 11 and allow you the opportunity to stand up and speak for what you were trying to do.
Sure.
Taking the marijuana piece out of it, to me, this was an opportunity for additional revenue to the town. Harry, I understand where you're coming from. Revenue is revenue, and this town has a revenue problem, and if it will bring in any amount of revenue, I think it's something that is a good opportunity for us to, and there's not even a guarantee that something would end up being opened. It's just allowing for that option. So that to me was, it just from that revenue standpoint and having that availability, it was a plus for me. And I think also, again, that particular corridor could really use some love. So I think it's a very big opportunity for this town to fill in some of those business and industrial needs that we've kind of talked about. And if we can encourage businesses to come in and work with the planning board to help kind of clean up that corridor, I think we might even have more opportunity for commercial growth on that stretch of road. So to me, I didn't see, my only concern with this is the cost of the actual special town meeting. And is that something that we have an expense for?
What if I covered the costs for the special town meeting? Is that illegal or is that legal?
I don't,
I think, so the town can take any gift it likes, but it wouldn't be realized until the next year. So, this is something that obviously we'd have to cover operationally with our current fiscal year budget. But certainly, if anyone wants to give anything to the town, the select board, I think it'd be more than happy to take it.
I mean, I'm to your point about not spending any more money, like if we voted tonight and it was 3 out of 5 and it was yes, then it was like we get a date so and so, then like I have no problem like contributing to the cause so that we don't have to spend more money on my item, you know what I mean? But I would think it would be fair to do it. And I could go do the signatures again, obviously, but like I already did that work. So I could go do it again, but
Tom, Paul, do you have any comments?
No, I think we owe it to, well, don't owe it, but I think we owe it to the town anyways to do everything we can to be welcoming to new businesses. And I do feel bad for him. I think I think it's unfortunate what happened that night. That the process we have, it's nobody's fault, but it is kind of half the room gets up and leaves. And I kind of feel bad for him for that, but I think we should do everything we can to help his business, or help him have a shot anyways.
appreciate that.
Well, I think, that all of the processes need to be put in place and make sure that everything is correct before we can look at saying, we'll have a town meeting for it or something like that, because at this particular point in time, we still have to know that all of these things are in place and done correctly.
Sure.
So, name and address.
Carol Benoit on Turkey Hill Road. The 45 days, does that include time given for the public hearing that would need to be held for this?
45 days
And
is
it would work out, I guess I'm just,
I think the 45 days is set by MGL, so it doesn't specify what type of reason. I know.
but it gives enough time.
Yeah, I believe the planner is aware of the potential time constraints and is mindful of that.
And I do have one more. My understanding is that town council had told the planning board not to hold a public hearing for this. For 11, they were able to squeeze through for 10, but they didn't hold it for 11. I don't know if that's been resolved, why that it doesn't need to be answered here. I guess I just wanna say the town planner was told by KP Law not to hold that public hearing or schedule it. I think it was scheduled, they told them to cancel it, I'm not sure, but I just wanna be sure. It sounded like maybe the planning board was held responsible party for this, and I'm not sure if that was, so I guess just to clear that up or not clear it up, I don't know. My point was,
I think the whole process, there was a lot of muddied communication, and miscommunication and misinterpretation of some communication. And so that's one thing, that I think we've been trying to work on. Part of the reason we're having the joint meeting on the 6th with planning board, and the planner is to kind of work out these processes. But I think that there's,
yeah, and I don't know what the reason was why they said to do that, but if that reason was still on the table, would that, interfere with moving forward with this? That was, I think, my point too.
If I may, I certainly don't wanna put words in John's mouth, but I had spoken to him briefly about it, and I think he acknowledged it was a miscommunication, that there was not actually a directive to not hold the public hearing. Again, I don't want to speak for him. And we can certainly check in with him and maybe clarify that, but that was my understanding.
Jen, if I may, he did make that comment at last week's,
Planning
publicly
board.
at last week's planning board meeting, that there was a miscommunication. I'm sure John did state it publicly.
so I guess I come at it as I am kind of on two sides about it. I feel like it's a slippery slope if we start honoring any requests that we have as a board to call a special town meeting, especially if there's not other town business that necessitates it. However, given the situation that this was a citizen's petition that had almost the requisite number of signatures to call a meeting, and then that petitioner's article wasn't able to be voted on because of that, I feel like in some ways we as a town owe it to the petitioner, whether it's this petitioner or any petitioner, as an option to try to rectify that and get it before the voters. That's kind of where I am. I believe in talking to John, our town planner, he is aware that it was an agenda item that the board would be considering and was willing to work with the board and planning board, the select board and planning board, if there is a need for a public hearing to do that in a timely manner and within the kind of looking at the 45-ish day time constraint. I believe. Austin, Tamika, do you have any?
To add, no.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, I apologize, I haven't looked at the dates. Does anybody have kind of looking at the January, early February dates, what the anything is?
So just for reference, if I may, Leah, the planning board's next meeting is not scheduled until January 14th, and then they would meet again on January 28th.
Good day. I'm sorry, Jen.
I was gonna say, I believe in my conversations with John, he, planner, was amenable to working with planning board if there was a need to try to have something, public hearing scheduled, outside of their regular meetings. Again, not knowing what the board's kind of wishes would be for calling a, special town meeting. I didn't wanna make any commitments or ask that he plan something when I didn't know what the board's pleasure would be. Our regular scheduled meetings are Monday the 6th and Monday the 20th.
Tuesday the 20th.
I was gonna say, but that gets pushed to Tuesday the 21st because Monday is the holiday. If we were to do a special town meeting, I would propose, as I mentioned, that it's here in the Blair room of the library, similar to what we did for the bylaw, comprehensive bylaw special town meeting that we did in, I believe, February last year, for ease of access, cost-wise, and everything. I don't know what that room's availability is. If the board is amenable to calling a special town meeting, potential dates. I think I would say, so I guess first, is the board amenable to considering calling a special town meeting?
I'm not against calling a special town meeting. I was, number one, concerned about the cost. And two, I just don't wanna see happen to John what happened again, and that we don't get the board to call a meeting to review his stuff, a public meeting. I wanna make sure that gets done. I don't wanna see him go through this again, okay?
Maybe just if it's a consensus of the board, and maybe if you wanna have a vote, some direction to us to come back maybe for your meeting on the 6th with a proposed calendar. Obviously, you have a joint meeting with the planning board then, so you could have this discussion then. We could come up with some dates that make sense, and lay that out for you as recommendations, and then you could formalize that timeline then, if you'd like.
Yeah, cause I think if the board's amenable to that, I'm liking that only because I know MMA conferences in January, which I think some of us may have booked, that there's other considerations with school vacation and stuff, holidays and everything as well. So be mindful, and Harry, to your point, to ensure that planning board has the requisite time to hold adequate hearings and receive public conversation.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that, you know, we've got to make sure we have everything, our ducks in a row before we schedule a town meeting.
So is the board amenable to calling a special town meeting and asking Austin and Tamika to work with John and maybe Norm as planning board chair for looking at dates, and then we can have a proposed calendar at our January 6th joint meeting?
If that's a motion, I'll move the motion.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye. Whitman, aye.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hope you have a great night.
Thank you. If we are okay to stay on new and special business, we have annual license renewals to review and issue the 2025 licenses. This is the common vics, liquor and auto dealer licenses. Everything is Tamika has put together everything, and what is before us are ones that have been complete applications, meaning the fee's been paid, the inspections are complete and successful, and all additional documentation has been received. I would, unless there are any concerns, I would go through them by the group and entertain motions to move them as groups. If I'll read through, and if anybody wants to pull one, just ask that we pull it out, and then we can have a conversation about that. So I would entertain a motion to renew the common vic licenses for Bedrock Golf Club, Dunkin' Donuts, Still Four Corners, Lad's Restaurant, Tula's, Baked Bakery, Schultz Farm, Lilac Hedge Farm, Maple Ave Diner, Coffee Lands, and Dolce Vita Catering as presented.
So moved. Second.
Tom moved and Jen second. Is there any conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. For the liquor licenses, I would entertain a motion to renew the liquor licenses for the calendar year 2025 as presented for Bedrock Golf Company, Bedrock Golf Club, Rutland Sportsman's Club, Still Four Corners, Lad's Restaurant, Colonial Convenience, Main Street Discount Liquors, Rutland Marketplace, Schultz Farm, Lilac Hedge, and Dolce Vita Catering.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any conversation?
Yeah, everything got checked off here. Was there an issue with the Colonial or Still Four Corners where there was a underage serving? And was
That was Colonial Convenience.
and that was resolved?
Correct, that was resolved at the state level.
Okay.
Two different businesses. Colonial is one, that's the package store, and then there's Four Corners.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. And I believe there are a couple underage things that have been reviewed at the state level. That's a state level consideration.
Correct, and they did, for the purposes of this, allow those businesses to renew their licenses.
Okay.
And then we have the auto dealer licenses. I would entertain a motion to renew the auto dealer licenses for the calendar year 2025 as presented for Mann's RV, Greg Restorations, which is Class 2 and Class 3, and Custom Fabrication. And CAS Custom Classic Cars.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, concerns, conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you all, Tamika, thank you for all the work and for everybody involved in the fees and the inspections and documentation, businesses, and everyone. Thank you for all of that.
Can I have a question, please?
We do have a list of a few that are outstanding licenses that are not ready for renewal or approval for various reasons as noted in our packet. I don't think we're gonna go through those rationales tonight. If anything comes in, that will be on our first meeting for January.
Yes, so I was just gonna confirm that after tonight's meeting, I did check again today to ensure that these businesses were still outstanding, and they were. Notification is gonna be sent to them in writing that effective December 31st, their licenses will have expired.
Okay.
And that they cannot conduct business until or if those licenses are renewed, with the soonest being the January 6th meeting. And I will continue to work with the fire department because those are all of the outstanding inspections for the ones that we were not able to approve tonight.
And is your sense that it's more on the business side for the fire department?
Yes, it is Deputy Chief Quinn provided us with an inspection report for each of these businesses citing the various things that needed to be addressed before he could safely sign off on those inspections. So there is communication between the fire department and each of those individual businesses on there. And I will say just for the public's information, we started this process in early October. So we've had about 2.5 months of communicating back and forth with these businesses in an effort to get everything taken care of. So we really did give it our best to make sure we could get everybody renewed before the end of the calendar year.
Thank you.
So if they don't get that information in, if the fire department doesn't give their okay, as soon as we could approve their license is January 6th again? That's it?
So regardless of whether or not the fire department approves it at this point, you won't be meeting again.
Okay.
So as of December 31st, their businesses will not be allowed to operate until that time. With the exception of Yang's Kitchen on the list, they can technically still make and serve food, but they would have to remove the seating from the restaurant until their license was renewed, because a common victular license is issued if you serve food and offer seating. So as long as they don't offer the seating, they can technically still serve the food. And I believe the other ones were auto dealers.
Auto deal, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there any other conversation for the license renewals? Thank you. Austin, I believe we have in our hands the Board of Public Works winter operation plan. Do you want to go through it high level?
Sure,
We had a
absolutely.
couple comments about it at public comments as well.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. So on behalf of the Public Works Director, Kolofsky, we're presenting the updated fiscal year 25 winter operations plan. I just want to say from the start, I hope we don't have to use it. But we already have, to be honest, with the storm last week or a couple weeks ago at this point. This is essentially an overarching guidance document for the Department of Public Works, other town departments, especially public safety, but also the community. Just to highlight some of the best practices for winter operations, especially snow clearing and ice control in the community on the roads, public ways, and also some of our municipal lots, and then again, some best practices for residents. Talks about the winter parking ban that is in place, and then just how we do our work for a winter storm. What kind of equipment we use, and especially what kind of material we use. Just to give you an idea, it's in the plan, but we use over 3,000 tons of salt every year. We apply nearly 3,000 gallons of liquid brine every year. We make it on our own, which is actually really innovative. But we do a lot of work, whether it's pre-treatment, obviously during the storm, and post-treatment. So that's one major update to this, was just updating the practices and some of the materials and equipment that we use. And then also, probably the most significant change to this is a proposed change to the mailbox replacement policy for the department. Right now, if during a winter storm, a snowplow destroys your mailbox, technically the current practice and policy is that the Department of Public Works has to buy all the materials and reinstall the mailbox. There's a lot of challenges there. One, cost, time. Oftentimes we really won't be able to get to it right away, so you won't have a mailbox. And just, it's not as efficient as I think as we'd like. So we looked around and spoke with some neighboring communities. The language we actually have is copied directly from the town of Holden. We are offering to revise that policy to now reimburse residents for any mailboxes damaged by town snowplows, providing a check for $50 to reimburse the homeowner's cost of it. Candidly, we spend a lot more time on and expenses on materials, but also staff time on getting Public Works staff out there to replace mailboxes. So that is the only major proposed change. The rest is kind of updating a plan that hasn't been updated since 2018, just with names, current practices, and also reformatting it a bit to be a little bit more clear. Of course, happy to answer any questions the board may have. But again, asking for your approval as we're, already in our winter season here.
I've got a question.
Right here.
Just on the mailbox.
Yep.
I know some mailboxes out there that go for $450, $400 or $500. So is there any other avenue of redress if somebody takes out a mailbox like that from the citizen?
So if I just may, historically, what was replaced was just a wooden post and a low grade mailbox. It wasn't necessarily replacing a $400 or $500 mailbox, granite post and everything. It was just replacing, oftentimes it was in a bucket with concrete and a wooden post and a lower grade, cheaper level mailbox. And that's what had been replaced historically.
The reason I said, we're seeing a lot bigger homes move in and we're seeing a lot more definition of mailboxes going into place.
And I
So
think
I just think $50 is low. If you're gonna offer somebody, make it $100, something, because $50, mailboxes today are $49.95.
I think most other communities are doing something similar. I don't know for sure of a dollar amount, but I think it's being mindful of what Rutland's budget constraints are, also.
But you gotta be mindful of the citizens, you're taking out somebody's mailbox.
Right.
And you want him to go by the post, you want him to take time to put it in, you wanna do all this, and you're gonna give him $50 for it.
And I can say
to me,
past
that's an
practice,
insult.
previous directors actually wouldn't replace it at all. There's nothing requiring that the town actually replace the mailbox. So it's actually to the discretion of the director. This is a little bit, in my opinion, more generous because it doesn't require some of the follow-up work that going out and allocating all those resources.
I've seen some
Essentially
mailboxes, $50 would be a lot, it's good for some of the mailboxes I've seen out there. But
And we looked at our neighboring communities and what they're doing, if they're doing it at all. And then just to answer your question, I guess, about some of the more luxurious mailboxes. Certainly I think it's the residents' right if they wanna pursue a property claim through their insurance company. That's something, obviously, we do a lot of insurance claims for other things that happen on public ways and because of the town's work, but obviously we're trying to cover this through the.
maybe it's not significant at all. How many mailboxes do we take out in a year?
We do about 10 a year. Yeah, well, knock on wood, hopefully we don't do more. 8 to 10, I think, is what the figure that was provided by the director.
And what does it cost to put, have they looked into not their cost, but what is the average cost to put a mailbox in? My mailbox, buy a post, all that. I mean, you're talking a 4x4 basically that goes into the ground. I mean, those things aren't cheap these days.
Yeah, so I think you're right on with the, probably it's maybe about, $50 for maybe about $30 to $50 for the box. Then we've got to get the post, which is another $40. The biggest is the staff time. Because especially if it's post-storm, they may still be on their winter operations snow rate, right? So we're spending a lot more resources on behalf of the taxpayers. We're spending a lot more resources to replace individual mailboxes, where I think this is a little bit simpler and more convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, it's a good idea. I just think $100 would be fair for the citizens of the town.
Yeah.
I mean,
If I can
You're
speak
talking
from
10.
experience.
if you're talking 10, that's, well, I own a $500, I own a grand of post in there with that, so if somebody takes that out, that is $500. But I have to assume that's not, you try to hit that plow, my granite mail, but with your plow, you're gonna damage your truck. I'm sorry, you're gonna rip it apart. So I'm assuming the snow is gonna do more damage to my mailbox, and that's not a big deal to me. But I'm talking overall, I don't think $50 for a normal mailbox is really taking care of the town, the citizens of the town, not for 10 mailboxes, or even 15,
In fairness, if you live on a state road like some of us, you don't get anything. And I will tell you,
Move.
I had to, but no, listen, I got a new mailbox. It's a really nice one. It was $20 on Walmart. Walmart.com.
You're a good shopper.
Listen, I'm just saying, they're out there. They exist.
I know, but on average, so, I mean, I guess that's I don't like the 50, I think it should be higher. But if anybody else has a comment.
I mean, I personally.
Get a post office box.
That's $80 a year.
But I think, our mailbox has been taken out a number of times over the years, and we piece it back together and put it back out, and, I think we are ones that are habitual because we're on a bigger, faster road, and that either just snow and slush take it out if it's not an actual plow. And we've just don't put in for the replacements and piece it together and do with it. So I think those of us that are accustomed to it are accustomed to it. I think $50 is a nice token, and it's, Harry, to your point, sometimes it might be doing more damage to the trucks than it is to the mailboxes. So $50 on top of having to fix a plow or something, to me is reasonable. It's kind of a good faith, but I hear your point.
I'm just trying to be fair to the citizens, that's all.
Another question on sidewalks.
Yeah.
It's generally been my understanding that on the residential roads or whatnot, that residents are responsible for clearing the sidewalks versus the town of snow.
That's correct. With exception to some of the main thoroughways and the ones that lead to the schools, right? So obviously we do Glenwood, we do Main Street, actually they're all listed here. Because of the extensive work that was done on Palmagussit Road, I believe we're also adding Palmagussit Road pretty much to the Vista as a part of the route as well. And that goes obviously to downtown, but you are correct. Any sidewalks in subdivisions, things like that, those are responsibility of the residents.
And I know this is more a town operation policy. Is this an appropriate document to make a statement to that effect? Even in my residential neighborhood, there's a lot of people that don't clear the sidewalks, and we don't have bus stops. They go to everybody's house, we still have to walk to the bus stop. If there's a foot, 2 feet of snow, we're still walking in the road down to the bus. Because the sidewalks aren't always clear, so I just didn't know if this was if it's not, that's fine.
Yeah, so Jen, I believe it is in here somewhere.
Okay, I skimmed this, I
don't have
didn't
the
see
page
it
for you
in.
right now, but I believe it does indicate the town, what the sidewalks that the town is responsible for.
Yep.
And I believe it does have language saying any other is responsibility of the residents, and it mentions cul-de-sacs and subdivisions.
I did see the cul-de-sacs and that, I just didn't see anything specific to the sidewalks being,
So we could, if you want more explicit language, we could put that in there just to say, to be make it
it doesn't
clear.
necessarily, again, if it's not appropriate for this, maybe even just if we have a storm, gentle social media reminder to residents to please take care of your sidewalks in front of your house. That's all.
But to answer your question, I do think it's the appropriate, because this is the
Okay.
winter operation, so you know, I think if the board deems it appropriate, we could just add that to that section, just about sidewalks, and make it very clear that what the town is responsible for.
It's not a hill I'm gonna die on, but if
Yeah.
if the board is amenable, I think it would be a good addition to, just as a reminder.
I think I'm comfortable with that. I know that there's a number of kind of neighborhoods and misconceptions out there that the sidewalks are, cause I think depending on where you're moving from,
Yeah.
some communities take care of all sidewalks, especially more urban communities, and then others take less care and put more onus on the residents, so
It's funny, I moved to Worcester and I thought they took care of our sidewalks, they do not. They do not.
Is a contractor plowing treated the same as a DPW plowing?
In what way, Paul?
In other words, okay, so they hire some contractors to do plowing as well. So if they hit the mailbox, is that considered, their responsibility, or is it considered the DPW responsibility?
So if they're, because we do hire private contractors for town plowing, so if they're contracted by the town, we do assume responsibility for that, because they're assigned a route by the director. If they're private, if someone's plowing your driveway, it's a private contractor, that is not a part of this winter operations plan.
or if it's a private road that's not a private way, a private road that's not in our list of private ways that are maintained by town,
Yep.
then that would be on the onus of the private contractor. And I think to the public comment, in if there's needs to be language explicitly surrounding personnel in the appendices.
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, that's, now that I think about that a little bit more, the previous plan, so we removed that part of the plan because the previous plan actually had equipment operators' names and their cell phone numbers. We didn't think that was appropriate.
No, just an org chart.
Yeah, well, so I didn't even think, to be honest, and you may respectfully disagree, I don't know if an org chart is really relevant to the winter operations plan. It's more relevant, I think, just to the overall arching how the department operates, hence why I mentioned the budget report. But that org chart, as previously mentioned in the 2018 plan, had contact information, more so as an internal document for public safety folks to be able to reach those operators and members of staff. So we removed that, so I think we'll have to revise that to reflect that as well.
I think, if I may ask, was the consideration if there's concerns about the conditions of roadways or sidewalks or something, a way to contact individuals? And I think, okay, so, okay, I was gonna say, I think that would go through, if it's in the middle of the storm, through dispatch, the non-emergency numbers. And if it's considerations outside of kind of funneled through our office, or DPW, but generally through our office to ensure that there's.
No, I was just curious of what the staff is in DPW.
Yep. So maybe we can
Not the people's names, but the
The
titles
organization.
and what they do and what's in water and sewer.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an opportunity to see that, cause I've been wondering it. And so I looked for it and it wasn't there.
So maybe to
and-
that point, we can add something to even like the DPW website, that has a little bit of a org chart for other, and for other kind of multi-staff departments as well.
And just on communication, so that is on section 5 of the plan, as the chair mentioned, all communications, especially during the storm, should go, but if it's during the storm, goes through dispatch. If it's pre or post storm, please contact the DPW, and then the very last page of this is also essentially a complaint form that you'd file with DPW and lists, of 10 problems that are kind of the most common problems that exist during the storm, and that's filed with DPW and followed up by the director or his designee. But I think as well, in terms of organizational structure, I think, and obviously if it's missing from the budget document, that's one of the goals that we wanna have in our budget documents is to make them in conformity with GFOA standards, so I think there maybe, and please quote me if I'm wrong, there should be a town-wide organizational chart. There's also a goal to have departmental organizational charts included for each budget page, for each departmental budget page, so you can see exactly what you're asking for. There's also FTE charts, I think, in there.
What charts?
FTE, full-time equivalent charts, I think those are in the budget document.
Yeah, I don't know, I haven't looked at that recently.
So I hear kind of, Harry would like to see the increased stipend from $50 to $100. I don't
No, I
know.
like it more than 50. It doesn't have to go to 100. I just think that when you look at the cost of a mailbox and a post, and we're saving all that time of having our people do it at the inconvenience of the homeowner, it should be more than 50.
And then we have Jen's kind of request to make it more explicit as far as the private sidewalks are on the private homeowner's responsibility for clearing. I wanna hear how the board is. I am comfortable kind of explicitly saying the sidewalk piece. I am also comfortable keeping the stipend as $50. But it's not a hill I'm gonna die on if the rest of the board is amenable to changing that dollar amount.
I'm gonna.
I agree with Harry. I don't think 50 is enough.
Do you have a recommendation?
I mean,
I'd go with 100.
is Paul, Jen, are you comfortable with that? Like I said, I'm fine with kind of whatever, but I'm quite comfortable keeping the 50 also, so.
Yeah, I'm of the same frame of mind.
So would the board be amenable to approving, making a motion to approve the Public Works Winter Operations Plan for the 2025 season as presented with the adjustments of the mailbox stipend or reimbursement from $50 to $100 and explicitly clarifying the private sidewalk language to be on the onus of the homeowners?
Could you just refresh me on that private language, because I heard your concern.
Not necessarily for private roads, just any neighborhoods, public ways that have sidewalks where the sidewalks, I understand the town's responsible for certain main roadways,
Like
main
a lot of the
sidewalks.
subdivisions, right?
Yeah, all
Yeah.
the subdivisions, the side neighborhoods, that they don't typically clear the sidewalks, the residents are
I'm
responsible.
just trying to gather whether they need to buy two sidewalk cleaners instead.
No.
He's asking for one.
That's
He
my,
wants one.
you know, can we do it? Can we do the job?
So I would entertain a motion for, as I stated.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. Alright, is there any other conversation? No. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
That's an aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. I just realized in looking through my packet that I skipped over under our annual license renewals, one other piece that we need to do. We need to approve and sign the seasonal population increase estimation form and the 2025 certification form that needs to be sent to the ABCC. It's in our packet. This is just saying that the town is estimating that as of July 10th, 2025, our resident population will be 9,800. That's based on town clerk estimations. And then we need the renewal certification to show licensees from the ABCC, in front of the ABCC whom failed to renew for 2025. And we have one, which is Center Tree LLC, which we had signed the documentation at a previous meeting as well. So I apologize for missing that in our annual license renewal piece. I would entertain a motion to approve and sign the seasonal population increase estimation form and the 2025 certification form to be sent to the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission as presented.
Second. Oh,
So
motion.
moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Conversation?
Just one quick question. I know the population is an estimate. Are there any negative impacts if we don't get to that number at this date?
No, so interestingly enough, I had always assumed that they asked for our seasonal population because that was how they adjusted our quota numbers. But I recently reached out to the ABCC directly, and they said that they only adjust our quotas based on the federal census every 10 years. So they will not be adjusting our quotas until 2030. So this actually has no bearing. I think it's just to give them a frame of reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Harry.
Second aye.
That's a nice.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Moving on, under new business, we have board and committee meeting minutes, discuss strategy to improve approval and posting. We have included in our packet a list of the appointed boards and committees with the kind of last date of posted meeting minutes, as well as the number of meeting minutes or meetings held without posted minutes. I think that throughout some conversation back and forth, there's been some conversation that the boards and committees aren't aware what they need to do with the minutes after they've been approved at their meetings. Some which should be currently sent to the town clerk's office for posting. I believe also there's been some that have been sent to the town clerk's office and have been kind of overlooked for posting in mistake. And I believe others maybe just aren't necessarily meeting on a consistent basis or prioritizing the minutes. So I know Tamika has sent out a number of communications to the chairs of the boards and committees and asked for them. I know a few have meetings scheduled to address the concern. I know others are in works as far as communication to get the meeting minutes moving forward. But I guess one of my considerations or concerns is if where the breakdown is happening, for if it's the boards and committees aren't aware of what they need to do. You know, we can do the training piece, kind of, we've talked about an onboarding piece for as boards and committees are formed, the appointment process or whatever, that this is kind of an overview, meeting minutes are this, and this is the process that after they're approved, they should be approved at the next regular scheduled meeting. And then they are emailed to currently the clerk's office. If the breakdown is the clerk's office getting them posted, I believe, you know, is there value to adding additional offices for posting, being able to post minutes or not? If the breakdown is just that they're not being done, then that's again, an education piece, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's also, I mean, each of these committees and boards have officers, they have chairs, hopefully they have clerks, so they're taking meeting minutes. I also think there's some onus on the clerk as well, who's generally the one submitting the meeting minutes for posting, to follow up and make sure that those are getting done. So in the event that they did submit them, if they don't see them posted, follow up with the town clerk's office to make sure that that's happening.
One of the other things that I saw somewhere posted or talked to Ben or something was, if you hold a meeting, if you schedule a meeting but you don't hold it and you don't notify them that it wasn't held, then it's considered not having meeting minutes done.
Yep.
So that could clean up a lot of this stuff if people call and say, we're not gonna have the meeting.
They cancel it,
Right, they cancel it.
Yep.
Or they don't have a quorum at their you know, they
Right.
wait and don't realize that they're not gonna have a quorum, and then they don't have a quorum. But that's again, that communication piece to the clerk's office then
Right.
also. And I guess how that documentation is most easily tracked.
Right.
I don't think anyone from the clerk's office is here to understand what on their end would facilitate their process, to your point, Harry.
And I will say, I did receive an email recently from the clerk's office regarding this topic. That's the first message I've seen in my 3+ years of being on town boards and committees, so I think it was a great message to get as a reminder. I would like to see it more frequently, if that's what they would like to do.
I think it was maybe back in June, maybe May, we got the notice about missing minutes, so our clerk just sent everything, double check, and finally his stuff got posted. They were so far behind because of the election,
Right.
for one. but we didn't get it. But I guess I'm concerned when 2, 3 I can understand. When you're going up to 7, 8, or 9, there's a functional problem on that committee.
Well, and that's.
And that's what we have to, do we talk to the committee about that? Do we find out who their clerk is? Do we, put a little more stress in it? If the clerk can't do it, then it's the vice chair's job. If the vice chair, then it's the president's job. You can't just not submit the minutes.
And Harry, to your point, I do wonder if some of them, and I don't know about all of them, but if some of them are, to your point, meetings that had been scheduled and not canceled, but didn't have quorum at the meeting.
Right.
So I don't know what that, but again, if the boards and committees don't know that they need to communicate that to the clerk's office, then that's again
Yeah.
a failure in the process and the education
Right.
piece.
It's my understanding, if you have a meeting, you're there, but there's no quorum, you still have to do the minutes. Just say, meeting didn't take place due to lack of quorum.
Right.
So there's something on file. But yeah, there's a functional breakdown when you get to that many. We have to look at.
That's what I've run across. Okay, so in other words, all right, so we have a meeting scheduled and all of a sudden one of the members can't be there for some reason, and that is, I get notified plenty of time beforehand that we can't have the meeting, so the meeting gets canceled. I notify the town clerk's office to pull the the agenda down, and so then it just, we missed the fact that we're supposed to let them know also that, all right, so yeah, there's that. And then there was also a personnel change, and so, there was some confusion there. I am comfortable with the fact that it's all cleared up right now, though.
I hope so.
So I guess, what's the process the board should go through to
So-
follow up on this?
I mean, I think maybe it's working, again, policy that then we can send out to the appointed boards. I think this is also a concern with some of the elected boards as well. Obviously, we don't have control over other elected boards. And not every elected board has a Tamika or someone to, paid staff to take their minutes. But
Exactly.
I think there's value to kind of either creating a document that's, as we onboard our committees, that they're provided, this is the process for meeting minutes. Austin, do you have a,
I think the policy is the law.
right?
I don't know how much more policy you need, other than it's the law to provide and produce timely meeting minutes and have them approved and posted.
But I'm thinking not necessarily policy, maybe it's more process as far as if, it goes to our point, if meetings are not being held, that a proper notification, or if they're called but there's not quorum, what that documentation looks like for some of these. I think in larger communities, they might not have the quorum issues that I know by looking at some of these boards, that they schedule meetings, call them, and then they don't have quorum show up, so.
Yeah, cause I could see it being, if you can't hold a meeting because lack of quorum, I would see that as being a chair's responsibility to follow up with the town clerk, but the meeting minutes is the clerk's job, so that, different people, different officers, just outlining the expectations. And Tamika, I know you did an open meeting law presentation, correct?
Yeah, so back in the summer, we developed an open meeting law training that essentially kind of broke down the very complicated state document into something that was a little bit more palatable for new folks coming on, and gave presentations to those boards and committees that asked. It was shared with department heads. It was asked of the town clerk's office to please share that when new members were being sworn in. It's been emailed out. I think the biggest concern is just that, it's not just an organizational thing, it's open meeting law.
Right.
And it's a requirement, and if we receive a FOIA request and we don't produce those minutes within 10 days, that's a violation in and of itself. So then you're talking about, do you have to convene an emergency meeting of that board to approve those minutes to be able to release them to the public? And I think, just to ask to your question about coming up with additional processes in place, whose responsibility is it to ensure that that's being followed? Does that fall on the clerk's office? Is there, is there a timeline for the clerk's office to have certain sets of minutes posted? I think it would just help for us to have some clarity as to who you envision making sure that this happens once we leave the room, if that makes sense.
I know during my 15 years on CIPC, I've always had a clerk, whether it's me or a clerk. I've always had a clerk, and we've always tried to get them on time, but if you have, I come back to this again. One of the reasons I asked the question was because I knew we were gonna get to this. Would you be willing to take on an officer's job for these people? Because the clerk is the toughest job out there. But if people say they're willing to do it, then at least you have somebody who will fulfill that officer's job. That was my concern. So if you have somebody that, I don't think I can, well, then if you're not willing to do that, I don't know if you'd be willing to be a good member in the team, so. But luckily, I've been lucky in my committee that we've been able to do it. And I did send a notice to my clerk, what's going on, how come we don't have these done? So, but that has to be conveyed to every committee. Again, I come back to, I can't even imagine in a nightmare why I would leave 9-minute meetings go. I just can't imagine. And at least my point was, what do we do? Do we do the memo? Do we call the chair in and say, what's going on? We appointed you, we expected you to do the job and it's not being done, so what's the problem? I don't know. That's part of why we run that's why we're running the town, is to make sure the committees run.
I mean, I think maybe if right now, because the minutes and everything sit with the clerk's office, I think if the clerk is willing to kind of work with at minimum the chairs of these committees to find out what meetings are missing, because they may not even know, like the committees may not even realize what meetings are missing. And maybe it's a meeting that there wasn't a quorum, and then that's an easier fix than not. And then working to, but I think right now, the way the structure is, it sits with the clerk's office. I don't know that there's impetus to change that or how that would look. So
I agree. I would like to see the clerk's office be a little bit more accountable to this and have some method of tracking. And I know we kind of did this already, where there was a request that when you send your meeting minutes, the file should be labeled a certain way to make it easy to identify as meeting minutes versus an agenda. But having some method of tracking who they've received and a process of verifying that they've posted those minutes, and then also being able to see what they don't have meeting minutes for, and do they need them, or was that meeting canceled, so that information can all be updated. But I do think that is a process, and I'm happy to allow Anita and Ben to figure out what process works best for them, but I agree, I think that should
And
stay
if they
within the
do,
clerk's office.
I would like to see them report back to the board on the process.
Yes.
You know.
I think you should ask the clerk's office to come to your next meeting or a future meeting to speak to this.
I was gonna say, if it's
Instead of like, we can go back and
Right.
forth with them and
Right.
maybe have them come up
And
with a
currently
plan to address it.
the clerk is an elected position also, so I think that there's that consideration also. And so mindful that it's a very important town department and it's also an elected position. So I think, to your point, I think our next couple meetings are kind of busy with other groups coming in but we can definitely try to work that out. But I think, if the clerk's office is amenable to at least trying to work with these chairs of these committees to figure out what minutes are missing and if meetings were actually held on those, that's one step in this process, and then we can work with them to figure out the process.
If that doesn't happen, do we take it out of the clerk's office?
Well, I mean, I think that's the joint conversation, right? Like, that we have to have is if they're overwhelmed, then is there a backup or what? I'm not sure. Historically, I looked briefly and I didn't see any MGL that points to specifically saying that it falls within the clerk's office.
So Lee, as a reference, I post my own minutes for the 7 boards and commissions that I work for. And I did confirm in MGL that I'm allowed to do that, and that was something that I worked out with the clerk's office a couple of years ago, that they said, you're writing them, it doesn't make sense for you to email them to us, you can just upload them to the website yourself, and so I've been doing that for my own boards.
So we should send them to you for upload?
It's just that, just saying, there's nothing in MGL that states it has to be the clerk's office.
But I think that that's one of the conversations that we can have at the joint meeting is the process working, if that's where the breakdown is.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's not working, whatever it is. So if I would definitely would like to have a joint meeting, and I would like to have request respectfully of the clerk's office, if they're overwhelmed and they don't have the capacity to take it on, that they let us know that so we can come up with an alternative, or have some sort of plan or process draft recommendation for what they would see putting in place in their office to help improve this.
I think looking to them, but again, I feel ultimately, it's the committee's job. You know, we gotta hold the committees responsible,
I agree.
and we can ask the clerk to say, hey, follow up on it, but ultimately, we appointed them, we expect them to do the job.
The clerk did follow up on meetings that we had to postpone, okay? And wanted to know what had happened regarding those, so all right. But there was follow-up from the clerk's office.
I think it's just inconsistent, that's my concern, is it's not every committee and it's not.
I see you.
I know, I didn't know really.
So name and address.
Jean Figliano, 27 Susie, speaking on experience with the clerk's office. Back up. Tamika has been great at getting us information and what the rules are, and we follow everything we can. You need to add agendas. We cannot get consistent posting of our agendas without nagging. So then the clerk's office wrote, she only wants you to email it between 8 a.m. and whatever closing time is, Monday through Thursday. So you can't email it at night when you're working on it. They don't read their emails when they get in at 8 o'clock? I'm not really sure. So you wait and you have to remember in the morning, at 8 o'clock or whatever, and then check 2 hours later that it's posted. And if it's not, don't call us, email again. I have an email that says this, I can forward it to you. Call us, don't call us, email again. So now I'm out biking on trails somewhere and I have to keep trying to find the internet on my phone, check if my agenda's posted, it's not posted, email them again and again, sometimes 3 times in a day. There's times Austin has had to post it for me, Tamika's had to post it. We need a backup, they're too busy, especially around election time, there's no consistency. And so I can't speak to the minutes, our minutes eventually get posted, we send them, we don't have that problem. But we have problems, as volunteers, we should not have to hound staff to post our agenda. We would like to be able to have Tamika post it, she's very reliable. And if you could work that into what you're doing, that'd be great.
Thank you for looping in the agenda considerations. I know the events committee has had a number of hiccups with
And it isn't just
agendas.
me, it's before me when Amanda was trying to get them posted. We have had consistent problems getting them posted.
So that'll be looped into our larger conversation with the clerk's office.
Carol Benoit, Turkey Hill, I'm wondering if, to Tamika, does Civic Plus, because you're posting agendas and then there's expected to be minutes, is there any way that anything can be automated through Civic Plus? That when there is it's date driven because there's a date for it, and then it's expecting minutes by, I don't know, you probably could put a time on it, a week later, or excuse me,
The next
the
meeting.
next, so 45 days, whatever. I'm wondering if Civic Plus has something like that. If not, they might, because they would be constantly trying to develop better processes, might be able to bring that to them.
So I don't think Civic Plus has that. There are other agenda or content management solutions that I know I've seen at actually Mass Municipal Association meetings where, of course, but we gotta buy that, right? And so it's another add-on.
Civic Plus might put it into the next reiteration of.
I think and it's a great suggestion, but there's also, we're certainly not the only community that posts agendas and minutes. And we're certainly not the only community that has town clerk's offices that post agendas and minutes, and everyone else is doing state, municipal, federal elections. So I think we gotta really focus more on, to Jen's point, resources, whether it's time management, is that a concern with this? I could say my previous stint as an assistant town clerk, acting, the town clerk was very tough. She said, Austin, you check every 2 hours for agendas or minutes. And there was a time when I didn't, and I got yelled at. But you could see in that community, they have very few issues with open meeting law and especially with public records. So I think maybe there's things like that. In that community, we used Excel and it did exactly what you're mentioning. So as soon as agenda was posted, there was a formula that automatically said when to follow up. And actually, I think it had a macro that pre-drafted the email that you posted this agenda. It was pretty technical. But there's things like that we don't necessarily have to pay money for it, but maybe tools that we can provide existing staff or the clerk's office to be able to be better about this. So, again, as I just mentioned, town clerks' offices have been posting agendas and minutes for decades, before posting was even a thing. So I think we just gotta work with the clerk's office to improve that, to all the points that you guys mentioned, so.
And I would just like to add, I'm beyond just the MGL requirements that this happened. If we've got, we have many vacancies on our committees and, some of a new person, new resident that wants to maybe get involved and get interested, they're gonna go look at agendas, they're gonna go look at meeting minutes, not all of our meetings are recorded. So if there is nothing there, they have absolutely nothing to go on. I mean, yes, they can attend the meetings, but it just doesn't paint us in a favorable light if we, especially for the committees where we have absolutely nothing posted. I think we just need to do a little bit better, and I think there's ways that we can figure that out. Thank you, I appreciate that.
So we'll continue and we'll invite the clerk's office for a joint meeting to see if we can streamline some things. Maybe if, I don't know if you want me to send an email to the clerk's office and just ask if they can reach out to the board and committee chairs from the list to see if they're willing to work with, these are the minutes, the meetings that are missing minutes, and see if they actually held meetings or not, because if we can clean up some of them that way, it looks less intimidating for some of them. And knowing that some of them don't meet frequently, they only meet as needed, is the other consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll keep it on the radar. And thank you, Jen, for kind of keeping it on the radar. We appreciate it. We also have a new business citation next week on Friday. Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm like so behind it. This Friday, the 20th, I believe at 2 p.m. there is a ribbon cutting ceremony for High Hawk Farm, the marijuana dispensary, retail dispensary opening up on Main Street down by the town line. I believe we have drafted a new business citation for the ribbon cutting, similar to what we've done for Coffee Lands and Maple Ave Diner. So I would entertain a motion to sign and present the new business citation for High Hawk Farm on Friday the 20th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any conversation? This is just a kind of feel-good business raha. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. I know, so that's all of our new business. I know we had on old business, the special act. I was hoping to finish this, to get it sent out towards, for feedback from legal as well, to get our questions from legal, as well as send it to the other electeds. it's a little bit after 9 o'clock. Is the board amenable to moving on this, or would you like to hold this until our next meeting?
Personally, 3 hours at a board meeting.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I think it's, move it.
Yeah. So we will hold that, unfortunately. I believe we have section 7, 8, and 9. Like I said, I would really like to try to get this through just so it moves off of our plate and into the next rules of the process.
Can I request, I thought it was really good, Harry, when you sent your comments, and we have Tim's, if there's any comments ahead of time, can we message them just so we have those to review in advance? That might just help speed up.
Right.
Yeah, if we can maybe send them through to Mika and
process,
then if you can kind of collate them or whatever, I wanna be cognizant of the OML piece, but for information purposes, it would be everything that's presented, but that way we would have time to digest and consider.
Yeah, if you wanna send it to just me personally and not include any other board members, I'll collate them and then include that in your packet so everybody has what everybody else said.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next regular schedule, we have a meeting this Thursday, December 19th, that's the joint meeting with FinCom and the school committee members. And I believe that's here,
In this room?
no,
Calkins room.
in the smaller Calkins room, and I believe it's, I don't remember the six. Thank you. And then our next regular scheduled board meetings are January 6th, which will be a joint meeting. We'll start with a joint meeting with planning board to kind of discuss the zoning bylaw, and bylaw considerations, processes for town meetings. And then January 20th, but I think that's the 21st.
It's the 21st,
because
yeah.
it's a Tuesday. And I believe there's conversation back and forth is inviting the library trustees to discuss library use, building use policy.
I'm just reading
Conversations there, kind of per their request, but also given that the library is a different beast managed by per MGL with the trustees and everything. Are there any other, and we have on the radar the joint meeting with the clerk's office, we can see timing wise what makes sense and their availability also. Are there any other future agenda request items? If you think of anything, by all means, please send them through Tamika Austin and I. And we try to be mindful a little bit of time constraints as well as what everything else is going on the agenda. If it is going to require some additional information, we wanna provide ample opportunity to obtain that. And then is there any other business to come before the board? Just wanna wish you guys all happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And happy holidays to everyone. If there's no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Give it to Paul. Roll call. Harry?
Second, aye.
Matt's and I.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, I have a good holiday.
Whitman, aye. Thanks, Tom.
So-
9:09 PM. Thank you. Happy holidays all.